Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different.
Yeah, we're really shifting gears this time around.
Right. I want to, transport you. I want to take you out of your car or your gym or your kitchen and just drop you into a very specific time and place.
A highly specific, very sensory place.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want you to close your eyes for a second, assuming, you aren't driving a forklift or operating heavy machinery.
Please keep your eyes open if you're driving.
Yes, safety first. But if you can, imagine a texture. Red velvet. Plush, deep, crushed red velvet. Now, I want you to layer on a scent.
It's a heavy one.
Very heavy. It's the smell of expensive French perfume, maybe Joy or Shalimar, mixed with the sharp, acrid bite of cigarette smoke. The air is just thick with it.
And the lighting.
The lights are low, amber-hued. It's that kind of lighting that makes everyone look just a little bit more beautiful than they actually are. The music is loud, thumping right in your chest, and everywhere you look there are wide lapels, chiffon dresses rippling as people move, and the glint of crystal glasses catching the light.
You are painting a very vivid picture here. We are at Annabelle's, aren't we?
We are indeed at Annabelle's nightclub in London. It is the mid-1970s. We are the absolute epicenter of cool. And we're here to talk about a story that captures the zenith of that era and the dark, crumbling hangover that followed. We are diving into the source material known as Famous Once.
This is such a compelling source text to look at because it isn't just a simple biography. It operates on two distinct timelines.
Right.
We have the absolute dizziness of 1974, the rock stars, the models, the sheer excess of it all, and then we have the stark, cold reality of 2025.
It's a story centered on Astrid Lane and Callum Blake. And if those names sound like the quintessential couple, well, it's because they are. They were the golden couple.
The ultimate icons of that decade.
But our mission today isn't just to recount their love affair or look at the pretty pictures. We need to unpack a mystery. Because there is a secret buried in this story. Literally recorded on magnetic tape. A secret that sat gathering dust for 40 years.
And when we analyze this, we're looking at something very specific. The difference between the public performance of glamour and the private reality of trauma.
Yeah.
We're going to see how power dynamics in the music industry, specifically the role of the manager, could silence the truth for decades. And we're going to look at how that silence rots a family from the inside out.
So here is our roadmap for the next hour. We're going to start in the 70s with the rise of Astrid and Callum. We'll look at the triad dynamic that defined their relationship because there was always a third person in that marriage.
Always.
Then we'll hit the tragic turning point, the mysterious death of Lily Morehouse.
From there, we'll jump 40 years into the future to 2025. We'll see where our characters are now. Spoiler alert, it's not all private jets and champagne anymore.
Not even close.
We'll discuss a break-in, a daughter's quest for truth, and a box of old cassette tapes that holds the key to absolutely everything.
And finally, we'll get to the resolution. Justice delayed and an unexpected family reconciliation. It is a wild ride, so buckle up.
Let's start at the beginning, the meeting.
Okay, so the source material paints this incredibly vivid picture of Astrid Lane's life in 1974. She's a top model. She's living with another model named Birgit. And the description of their apartment is just chaotic perfection.
Utter chaos.
Clothes everywhere, makeup scattered on tables. The phone is literally off the hook.
It establishes the youth and the carelessness of the time so well. There is this great detail where Birgit is walking around the apartment in nothing but a tiny pair of red silk panties.
Yes, and she's yelling at Astrid to get her glad rags on because they're going to Annabelle's to meet George and Patty.
That's George Harrison and Patty Boyd, presumably.
Right.
It immediately calibrates the level of celebrity we are dealing with. These aren't just people, they're icons. They are the royalty of London.
But Astrid is tired. She's been shooting with David Bailey all day. She just wants to sleep. But then Birgit drops the bomb. The name that changes the trajectory of Astrid's entire life.
Callum Blake is going to be there.
Callum Blake.
The former lead singer of the Leopards. He's gone solo. He is arguably the biggest rock star in the world at this very moment. And according to the tabloids, he's just split up with his previous girlfriend. He is single.
So naturally, Astrid drags herself out of bed. She puts on a Halston dress, because of course she does, it's 1974, and they head out. And when they get to Annabelle's, the description in the source is just sensory overload. Louis the doorman kissing them on the cheeks. The dark, cozy intimacy of the club.
It's a place where the famous go to be safe from the public, but to perform for each other.
Oh, that's a great point.
It is a crucial distinction. They aren't hiding. They are on display for their peers. And as they approach the table, we get our first look at the dynamic that will define the rest of their lives. Callum is there, looking incredible. But sitting next to him is a man named Vic Roth.
Vic Roth. I want everyone listening to pay close attention to this name. This guy is a piece of work right from the jump. He introduces himself to Astrid as the power behind the throne.
That phrase is so telling. He manages Callum. He's the businessman, the fixer, the guy who makes the money, but the source material makes it clear immediately he is a predator.
It's visceral. Astrid sits down, and Vic immediately puts his hand on her leg. She moves it. He puts it back higher. He's testing boundaries instantly.
Yeah.
And then he says, and this line absolutely made my skin crawl when I read it. He says, "Do you know how many women would pay to have Vic Roth's hand on their leg?"
Ugh. It establishes the triad dynamic we are going to see throughout this entire deep dive. Vic is the power broker who believes he owns the talent, and by extension, the women around the talent. Astrid is the prize, and Callum is the asset.
The asset, exactly.
Vic believes that because he controls the money and the fame, he owns the people. Astrid is just a perk of the job in his eyes.
But Astrid isn't having it. She gets up and goes to the bathroom to escape this creep. But Vic follows her. He corners her in the corridor. He pins her against the wall. He's drunk. He's aggressive. He's grabbing her. It's a sexual assault in progress.
And notice the physical description here in the text. He's described as fleshy. He's heavy. It contrasts so sharply with the description of Callum and the models, who are all angular and beautiful and ethereal. Vic represents the ugly heavyweight of the industry.
And then the hero moment, or, well, what looks like a hero moment, Callum Blake appears.
He pulls Vic off. He tells him to stop. But look at Vic's reaction. This is what we really need to analyze. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't seem ashamed at all. He says to Callum, "It's only because you're my favorite rock star that I'll let you have her."
Let you have her. That phrasing is just.
It tells you everything about Vic's worldview. Women are currency. He isn't respecting Astrid's autonomy. He is granting a favor to his client. He is transferring property. It's chilling.
It really is. But for Astrid, in that moment, Callum is the white knight. He saves her, and he immediately takes her away from that toxicity. They leave Annabelle's and go to a place called La Chasse.
And this is where the romance really starts. And, often with these rock star stories, you expect it to be just physical. You expect them to look at each other and say, "You're beautiful, I'm famous, let's go." But the source emphasizes that it wasn't like that.
No, it was deeply intellectual. They sit on red velvet banquettes, more velvet drinking coffee, and they talk about astrology. Astrid is a Gemini, Callum is an Aquarius. They decide this is a cosmic match.
They talk about transcendental meditation. Callum had been to Wales to visit the Maharishi. They talk about ego death and psychedelics.
It's that very specific 70s seeking of higher consciousness. Astrid is surprised. She expects a giant ego from this massive rock star, but she finds someone curious. She tells him, "You're not what I expected." And he says, "I'm interested in you, Astrid Lane."
It's the beginning of the golden couple. They seem perfect, they are beautiful, they are smart, they are spiritual, and eventually this profound connection leads to the wedding in Ibiza.
Oh, the description of this wedding. If you have a vision board for the ultimate bohemian wedding, this is the source code. A whitewashed finca, the sun setting over the olive trees, the smell of pine and rosemary in the air. They have a priest they befriended in Bali officiating the ceremony.
The Rolling Stones' Wild Horses is playing in the background. Astrid is wearing Ozzy Clark chiffon. It sounds like an absolute dream.
And there's always a but with these stories. There's a massive lie at the center of it.
A massive structural lie. We find out later in the source that this wedding wasn't actually legal.
Let's unpack this, because this is a huge betrayal. It turns out the marriage wasn't legal under Spanish or English law.
Correct. The source reveals that later, when things inevitably fall apart, Callum and Vic argue that the ceremony was spiritual, not binding. Vic Roth, the manager, likely orchestrated this entire thing to protect Callum's assets. It was a performance of a marriage. It wasn't a legal contract.
That is heartbreaking. You have Astrid there thinking she is committing her life to her soulmate, thinking she has the legal protections of a wife, and the men in her life are treating it like a PR stunt or a temporary arrangement.
It speaks volumes to the power imbalance. Astrid wanted domesticity. She really wanted to grow vegetables and raise chickens. She wanted the Earth Mother life at their country estate, Latchkey Farm.
And Callum
was the portable parent. He was the rock star on the bus. He was touring America. And this brings us to the tapes. This is a crucial plot device we need to introduce now. Callum recorded everything.
He had a reel-to-reel recorder, right?
Yes. He would record his thoughts, his fears, his songs, and he would record love letters to Astrid while he was on tour. He actually sent these tapes to her.
It sounds romantic on the surface. But Astrid notes in the source that he sent so many so often, it felt like he was just offloading his guilt. Like if I send her a tape of me talking about my feelings, it magically makes up for the fact that I'm not there and probably sleeping with other women.
Exactly. It's performative intimacy. And Astrid admits she often didn't even listen to them. She'd just toss them in a box, which, as we'll see, is a ticking time bomb.
So we had this tension building. Astrid is at home with her young daughter, Zara. Callum is on the road recording his life on tape. But they are still holding it together until the night of the party, the turning point.
The death of Lily Morehouse.
This is the shadow that hangs over the entire story. It's roughly 1974, 40 years prior to the main narrative timeline. There's a party at the house, and Lily Morehouse, an 18-year-old girl, drowns in the pool.
And the official story, or at least the lack of a coherent story, is that it was a tragic accident, a case of misadventure at a wild rock star party. But notice the shift in atmosphere described in the source after this event. Before Lily's death, the drug use was described as happy hippie stuff. Joints, hashish, expanding the mind.
And after?
After Lily dies, the mood darkens entirely. We move to cocaine on smoked glass coffee tables, heroin, quaaludes, numbing agents. The source describes a deep skepticism about the value of life, a feeling of why not drown yourself in whatever you could find to numb the pain.
That is a profound shift. The death of Lily Morehouse effectively killed the 60s dream for them. It ushered in the dark side of the 70s, the pure nihilism.
And it destroyed the family dynamic completely.
Yeah.
Callum withdrew into touring and women. Astrid withdrew into vodka and isolation, and stuck in the middle of this toxic wasteland was their daughter, Zara.
Zara describes herself later as being raised by wolves.
It's such an evocative phrase. Her dad is unpredictable and angry. Her mom is disinterested and intoxicated.
It's a classic trauma response. The parents are carrying a secret, or at least the tremendous weight of this event, and the child is a collateral damage. Zara learned to be invisible because her parents were simply too unstable to rely on.
And the final nail in the coffin for the romantic relationship comes from the tabloids, specifically the News of the World.
Rock star's secret love child. That was the headline.
Ugh, the ultimate cliche, but devastating in reality. Callum had a child with another woman, Callum Jr.
And this broke the illusion for Astrid once and for all. She could handle the rumors, maybe even the one-night stands on tour. But a second family, a permanent living reminder of his betrayal. That was the end.
So the Gorham couple splits, and Vic Roth ensures Astrid gets almost nothing financially because, as we mentioned, the marriage wasn't legal. And now we fast forward 40 years. It is 2025.
And the picture of Astrid Lane at 60-something it's poignant. It's really difficult to look at.
It really is. She's living in this crumbling cottage in Sussex. It's described as perfectly Astrid chintzy fabrics, white bedding, but the roof is leaking, the boiler is constantly broken, and there is this one detail that just stuck with me. She has to jiggle the knob on the stove in a very specific way just to get it to work so she can make her oatmeal.
That specificity is just heartbreaking. She was the most famous woman in London, wearing Ozzie Clark and Halston at Annabelle's. Now she's jiggling a broken stove knob and worrying about the bank closing her account due to lack of funds.
It's the universal symbol of making do. It's the friction of financial struggle. She's a former supermodel, and she's struggling to heat her morning porridge.
She's catering parties to make ends meet. She's working for people who literally used to have her poster on their bedroom wall.
It's a stark, unglamorous look at the reality of fame when the money runs out. She feels diminished. She relies on sleeping pills. She's deeply isolated.
But the world hasn't forgotten the 70s. In fact, they are obsessed with it. There's a huge retrospective launching, art shows, talks, and a new podcast.
And this podcast is the catalyst for everything that follows. Callum Blake gives an interview for it, and during this interview, he casually mentions the tapes.
He tells the host he recorded everything back then, and Astrid is listening to this interview in her car. She hasn't thought about those tapes in years. They're hidden upstairs in a box in her cottage.
And almost immediately after this interview airs, there is a break-in at Astrid's cottage.
Now, this is highly suspicious. Astrid comes home, or rather comes downstairs, and finds the spare room window completely smashed. But here's the thing. Nothing valuable is taken. The TV is right there. Her jewelry's there.
But the papers are rifled through. The cupboards are thrown open.
So what does this tell us?
It signals intent. This wasn't a smash and grab for quick cash by a local kid. This was a targeted search for information. Someone heard Callum mention the tapes on that podcast, and someone got very nervous.
This raises the stakes immediately. We go from a somewhat sad story about a woman struggling with aging and finances to a full-blown thriller, and this brings Zara back into the picture.
Zara Blake, the daughter. She is fascinating. She is the complete antithesis of her parents.
Totally. Astrid is chiffon and flowery vibes and denial. Zara is combat boots, stiff jeans, a minimalist apartment in the city, severe glasses. She's a journalist. She deals in cold, hard facts, not vibes.
They have a very tempestuous relationship. Zara barely texts her mother back. She keeps a rigid distance, but Astrid desperately needs money because the bank is calling about her overdraft. And Zara wants something in return.
She wants the story. She's been listening to the podcast retrospective too, and she's gone completely down the rabbit hole about Lily Morehouse. Her journalist instincts are firing. She suspects foul play regarding the drowning. She wants to listen to her father's old tapes.
It's a pure transaction at first, money for access. But it's also Zara trying to finally make sense of her own trauma. Why did her childhood fall apart so violently? She thinks the answer is in that dusty box of reels.
So Astrid agrees. But before they can really get started on the investigation, the threat becomes explicit. And this scene gave me absolute chills. Astrid is in her kitchen, baking an orange almond cake, trying to make things nice and domestic for Zara's upcoming visit, and the doorbell rings.
She naturally expects it to be Zara. She doesn't even check the peephole.
And instead, it's a stranger. A man with an air of menace standing right on her doorstep. And he delivers a message.
Don't let a ghost ruin your final years.
Terrifying.
He demands the tapes on behalf of a friend. Astrid thinks on her feet, lies, and says she destroyed them years ago. But this encounter confirms everything. The tapes contain incredibly dangerous evidence.
When Zara arrives, Astrid tells her what happened. And instead of backing down or getting scared, Zara goes into full investigative journalist mode. She says, "Get the tapes."
This is the turning point for their relationship. They are no longer just estranged mother and daughter. They are now co-conspirators. They sit down with the reel-to-reel, or they use a digitized version to comb through the audio, and they listen.
And they find it. The needle in the haystack.
It's a recording of Callum confessing to Astrid back in 1974.
We need to hear what he said. Or, well, we need to read what the transcript said he said. Callum says on the tape he was drunk, everyone was drunk, and he was horseplaying, everyone was dunking everyone in the pool, and he held her down too long.
He being Vic Roth.
Vic Roth held Lily Morehouse underwater as a joke, and she drowned.
And then the cover-up. Callum continues on the tape. He made me swear never to tell a soul. So I'm telling you, because I can't carry the burden of the secret by myself.
Wow. So Vic Roth committed manslaughter. Accidental or reckless, sure, but still homicide. And he forced his client, his creation, Callum Blake, to cover it up.
And by extension, Callum made Astrid complicit by telling her. Even if she didn't fully remember listening to the tape or wanted to block it out with vodka, the knowledge was physically there in the house. It was the poison in the groundwater of their marriage.
So now Zara has the smoking gun. She has the clear audio confession. She decides she has to publish.
And this is where the character contrast shines so brightly. Astrid is terrified. She says, Vic Roth has connections to the Cray twins. She remembers the thug at the door. She is still living in the fear and the power dynamics of 1974.
But Zara's living in 2025. She told her mother, Vic Roth is an old man. I'm a journalist. Once we go public, he can't touch us. She trusts the power of the press and the institution of justice, which her mother never could.
And she's absolutely right. They published the expose. The fallout is immediate and massive.
Vic Roth is arrested. He goes to prison. He's described to the source as a pathetic shell of a man. The scary monster of the 70s is just a frail, elderly criminal now.
And Callum, this reaction is so interesting. He gets publicly castigated. People are furious that he hid this for 40 years to protect his own career.
But does he actually care?
Surprisingly, no. He claims memory loss. He basically says, I was off my face on drugs, I don't remember any of it. Which might be true, or it might just be a very convenient legal defense. But privately, he tells Astrid later that he's had an extraordinary life, and he doesn't really care what the public thinks of him now.
It's such a classic rock star attitude.
Yeah.
Cancel me, I don't care, I'm 80 years old.
Exactly. But The real resolution here, and this is the core aha moment of our entire deep dive, isn't about Vic Roth going to jail. It's about what the truth does to the women in this story.
Yes, the relationship between Astrid and Zara.
Before this entire ordeal, Zara looked at her parents as monsters. Careless, selfish monsters who chose drugs and fame over her well-being.
Raised by wolves, as she said.
But through listening to the tapes and through investigating the actual timeline of events, Zara realizes that they weren't just partying for the fun of it. They were deeply traumatized. They were carrying the immense weight of a dead girl and a highly dangerous secret.
It humanizes them for her. She realizes the heavy drug use wasn't just pure hedonism. It was a desperate escape from guilt.
And Astrid finally apologizes. She doesn't make excuses anymore. She looks at Zara and says, "I'm sorry I wasn't a good mother." And because of that honesty, she starts to heal, she stops drinking, she becomes truly present.
They become best friends, or at least very close collaborators. They move from being completely estranged to being a team.
Which leads us perfectly to the final scene, the reunion.
It's a celebration party at Zara's apartment. Astrid has cooked a massive Thai feast. She's still the caterer, doing what she loves. And guess who walks in?
Callum Blake.
He looks old, craggy, frail. But the source notes that for a split second, Astrid sees the vibrant young man she first met at Annabelle's.
It's a really beautiful observation on how we see the people we've loved, the overlay of deep memory on physical reality.
And the banter between them. They fall right back into it without missing a beat.
Yeah.
Callum admits Astrid is the absolute love of his life. He complains about his new young wife, who is apparently younger than their daughter Zara.
40 years his junior, and he complains that she can't cook scrambled eggs like Astrid.
The scrambled eggs detail, I love that. It's so domestic and intimate. It shows that despite the fame, the affairs, and the massive drama, their core connection was built on these small, everyday things. He says she doesn't stir them slowly enough.
It highlights that Astrid and Callum had a domestic intimacy that no one else can match. They shared a whole life, not just a spotlight.
And crucially, Callum isn't angry at Zara for exposing the secret and ruining his reputation. He's proud of her.
He puts his arm around her, Astrid stands on the other side, and we have this final tableau, the three of them standing together.
The family unit. Broken, battered, reshaped over decades, but finally, authentically together.
The expert analysis here is simple but profound. The secret was the rot. It was eating the structure of the family from the inside out. By blowing up the house, by exposing the ugly secret, Zara didn't destroy the family. She was the only one who could put it back together.
That is incredibly powerful. It really flips the idea of protecting the family name on its head. Sometimes you have to burn the public reputation to the ground to save the actual people.
Precisely. The truth was the only cure.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Famous Once, what are the key takeaways we should leave with?
First, the corrosive nature of secrets. You simply cannot bury trauma. It will inevitably grow in the dark and poison everything around it. Second, the illusion of the golden couple. The glittering public image of the 1970s was often a facade hiding deep dysfunction, addiction, and fear.
And third, redemption. Astrid starts this story popping sleeping pills and aggressively jiggling a broken stove knob just to survive the morning. She ends it confident, sober, and deeply reconnected with her daughter. It really shows that it's never too late to fix the narrative of your own life.
And finally, I have a provocative thought for our listeners to take away and chew on.
Hit us with it.
We look back at the 20th century at these massive cultural icons. The rock stars, the visionary actors, the powerful managers, we put them on pedestals, or in the modern era, we cancel them when things come to light. But this story asks a very specific question. How many other legends are currently protecting dark secrets that literally defined the cultural history of that era? And if those secrets came out today, would it destroy their legacy, or would it simply humanize their personal tragedy?
Ooh. That is going to keep me up tonight. That is a fantastic point to end on. Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.
And keep digging.
Imagine, if you will, that you are standing right in the very center of the old world.
Okay.
It is the dead of winter. It's pre-dawn, so it's that, that specific time of night where the darkness just feels heavy.
Yeah, almost tangible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Almost tangible. And you are standing on a bridge built of blackened sandstone that has somehow survived floods and wars for 600 years.
It's a very specific vibe.
The air is so cold it actually burns your lungs when you inhale. You're tasting frost and river water.
You were painting quite the picture right out of the gate here.
I am trying to take us there.
Yeah.
Because, well, The place matters so much for this. You're surrounded by statues of saints, 30 of them, lining the bridge.
Just looming out of the freezing mist.
Like silent judges. And the only light comes from the amber glow of these gas lamps flickering in the snow. You are in Prague.
The city of 100 spires.
Yes, a place that has just always been the capital of magic, of alchemy, of hidden secrets, and it is the exact setting for the source material we are cracking open today.
It really is the perfect backdrop. I mean, honestly, I don't think this story could happen anywhere else.
Yeah.
Today, we are conducting a deep dive into the opening act of Dan Brown's The Secret of Secrets. We're going to be analyzing everything from the prologue all the way through chapter 22.
And let me tell you, when we say deep dive, we really mean it today. This isn't just a basic summary of a thriller.
Right.
We aren't just talking about, a simple murder mystery here. We are talking about a total collision of worlds.
Yeah, the core conflict isn't just good guy versus bad guy. It is ancient mysticism versus noetic science.
It's just such a wild concept.
It is. It's about the friction between the things we used to believe, magic, spirits, alchemy, all the stuff of folklore, and the cutting-edge science that is starting to suggest those things might actually be real.
Exactly. So our mission today is to completely unpack that collision. We're going to unravel a global conspiracy that seems to be absolutely terrified of a book.
Single book.
Right. We're going to analyze historical symbols that you listening right now have probably seen 1,000 times, but never really looked at.
We're going to talk about clay monsters.
Yes, clay monsters. And we're going to try to answer the massive question, is your brain actually in charge of your consciousness? Or is it just a receiver for something else entirely?
That is the big one. That's the question that drives the entire narrative forward.
It really is. But before we get into the heavy philosophy, let's just orient ourselves. We have a cast of characters that feels very classic Dan Brown, but with some definitely darker twists.
Yeah, darker for sure.
We have Robert Langdon, obviously, the Harvard symbologist.
Right.
He's the guy who wears Harris tweed and a turtleneck and somehow always finds himself in life-threatening situations while looking at art.
He is our anchor here. He really represents the historical perspective in all this.
And then we have Catherine Solomon. Now, if you're familiar with the lost symbol, you might remember her brother, Peter Solomon. But Catherine is the intellectual powerhouse of this story. She is a noetic scientist, which is a field we are going to have to define very carefully in just a minute.
Definitely. And then we have our villain, a terrifying figure known simply as the Golem.
A massive man in a clay mask.
Yeah, who seems to have walked right out of a literal nightmare.
And rounding it out, we have Captain Janacek, a chain-smoking Czech intelligence officer who is absolutely 100% done with everyone's nonsense.
I really enjoy Janacek. He serves a very specific and necessary function in the story.
He does.
He is the voice of skepticism. He is the materialist in a world that is rapidly going crazy with mysticism.
He's the guy essentially saying, I don't care about your psychic visions, I just care about the permit for that firearm.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in. The story kicks off with a bang, or actually rather a lecture.
But it is not a boring academic talk.
No. Catherine Solomon is speaking at Prague Castle, specifically in Vladislav Hall.
And just the setting of the lecture is deeply symbolic. Vladislav Hall is this massive, late Gothic ceremonial space.
It's gorgeous.
It has this complex, vaulted stone ceiling that looks like intertwined ribs. I mean, it's where medieval knights used to joust indoors.
Indoors, which is crazy.
Right. It is a space entirely designed for ancient power. And here stands Catherine Solomon, a modern scientist, preparing to tell a packed audience that everything they know about their own minds is completely wrong.
She starts by addressing the elephant in the room, or as she calls it, the C word.
I loved this opening. She really gets the audience nervous.
You can feel the tension.
You really can. They think she's going to say something profane or maybe something highly political. But the C word she's referring to is consciousness.
Now, hold on. Let's pause there. Why is consciousness a dirty word in science? I mean, we all have it.
Sure.
I am conscious right now, I hope.
Yeah.
You're conscious. It is the defining feature of human existence. Why would scientists be afraid to even talk about it?
Well, it's not that it's dirty, it's that it's messy. It just doesn't fit the established rules.
How so?
For the last 300 years, pretty much since the Enlightenment, Science has been completely dominated by materialism.
Okay, define that for us, just so we're all on the same page.
Materialism is the strict belief that only physical matter is real. If you can't weigh it, measure it, or poke it with a stick, it does not exist.
Right.
In this worldview, the universe is just a machine.
Like a giant clock.
Exactly like a clock. And in that model, a human being is just a biological machine. You are made of atoms. Your brain is essentially a machine made of meat.
A machine made of meat. That is a lovely image to have over breakfast.
It's crude, but it's totally true to the theory. The standard scientific dogma is that your neurons fire, chemicals release across synapses, and that purely biological process creates the feeling of being you.
So consciousness is just a byproduct of the brain.
Right. It's the steam coming off the engine. It's trapped completely inside your skull.
Which means when the brain dies, the machine stops, and the steam just dissipates. Consciousness ends.
Correct. That is the safe, accepted, materialist view. But Catherine Solomon stands up in that ancient hall in Prague and says, no, you're all wrong.
She called it a paradigm shift.
She compares the current model of the brain to the flat earth theory, or the geocentric model where everyone thought the sun revolved around the earth.
Because it looks that way from where we stand.
Exactly. If you just look up, the sun seems to move across the sky. But it's an illusion. Catherine argues that the idea that the brain creates consciousness is the exact same kind of illusion. We are looking at it completely backward.
So if the brain doesn't create consciousness, what is it actually doing?
She proposes that the brain is not a creator at all. It is a receiver.
Okay, let's really unpack that analogy. The brain is a receiver.
Yeah.
Because this is the absolute core concept of noetics, isn't it?
It is. Think of a television set. You're sitting in your living room watching a show. Let's say you're watching the evening news. If I come over with a baseball bat and I smash your TV into a million pieces, the picture disappears, the sound stops, the news anchor is gone.
Right. My TV is dead. I'm very upset.
And this is the crucial key here. Did I destroy the news anchor? Did I destroy the broadcast signal?
No. The signal is still in the air. The broadcast is still happening.
Exactly. I just broke the box that was tuning into it.
Wow.
Catherine is suggesting that human consciousness, your soul, your mind, yourself, is the signal. It exists entirely outside of you. It's a field, just like gravity or electromagnetism.
And your brain is just the biological antenna tuning into that specific frequency.
Yes.
That is wild. Because it directly implies that if the body dies, if the TV breaks, the signal is still there. It's basically a scientific argument for the immortality of the soul.
Precisely. You can easily see why this would be so controversial to a room full of materialist scientists. She is taking theology and trying to prove it with physics.
She is saying that we are not our bodies. We are the signal passing through the body.
Nope.
But she doesn't just leave it as a nice philosophical thought. She's a scientist. She brings receipts.
Oh, she brings the data.
First, she actually uses a visual trick to prove that our brains are constantly filling in gaps. The Hermann grid.
Yes, the Hermann grid. That's a great warm-up for the audience.
If you haven't seen it, it's this classic optical illusion, a grid of black squares separated by white lines. And when you look at it, your brain literally makes you see gray dots at the intersections of the white lines.
But the dots aren't there.
They aren't there. Your brain is predicting reality and filling in the blind spots. And she uses this to show how flawed human perception is. But then she gets to the real heavy hitter.
The precognition experiment.
I have to say, this part of the source material, I read it, then I reread it, then I literally put the text down and just stared at the wall for a minute.
This was the major aha moment for a lot of people reading this. And it's so important to note, this isn't just fiction Dan Brown pulled out of thin air. This is based on real-world research.
From places like the Peer Lab at Princeton. Right.
Yeah.
And the Institute of Noetic Sciences.
Exactly. Real institutions.
So walk us through this experiment. How do you actually prove that the mind knows the future?
Okay, so you take a subject, just a regular person, and you hook them up to an EEG machine. You are monitoring their brain waves in real time.
Yeah.
You sit them in a comfortable chair in front of a computer screen.
So far, very standard lab stuff.
Right. Now, the computer is programmed to flash a series of images, but it's not a preset slideshow. It uses a true random number generator.
That feels important.
It is the most important part. The computer is deciding in the exact millisecond what to show next based on electronic noise. It is pure chaos.
So there's absolutely no pattern for the subject to learn.
None. Now, the images they use fall into two distinct categories. Some are calm, a flower, a landscape, a cute puppy, things that keep your heart rate down.
Nice, relaxing things.
And some are Emotional or high stress, violence, surgery, erotic imagery, extreme danger. Images that immediately trigger a visceral fight or flight response in the human nervous system.
Standard evolutionary stuff. You see a snake, you jump back.
Right. In a normal materialist timeline of cause and effect, here's what happens. The eye sees the scary image. The signal travels to the visual cortex. The brain processes danger. The amygdala fires. And you get a massive spike in brain activity on the monitor.
Stimulus, then response.
Cause, then effect. Always in that order.
Right.
But when the researchers looked at the data on the timeline, they found something scientifically impossible. The subject's brainwaves were spiking before the image even appeared on the screen.
Before.
Hundreds of milliseconds before. The brain was reacting to the trauma before the eyes had even seen it. The spike was happening in the pre-stimulus window.
It's spooky. It's like the body has a physical delay, but the mind is already there. It's bracing for impact before the impact even happens.
But here is the real kicker. This is the detail that completely shatters the materialist model.
Okay, Catherine explains that because the computer uses a true random number generator, the decision of which image to show the puppy or the car crash is made only nanoseconds before it appears.
Wait, stop. I really want to make sure I understand this. The computer hasn't decided yet.
Correct. The computer is still shuffling the deck, so to speak. It hasn't picked the card.
But the human brain already knows if the card is going to be a flower or a car crash.
Yes.
The brain knew what the computer was going to do before the computer even knew what it was going to do.
That is the inescapable implication of the data. It suggests that consciousness is not bound by linear time at all.
That is the definition of mind-blowing.
Catherine's overarching argument here is that the mind doesn't just predict reality, it actually helps create reality. She suggests that the observer's expectation might actually be influencing the machine's random choice backward in time.
Creating reality. That is the phrase that really launches the whole book.
Yeah.
Because if our thoughts can influence the physical world, even just a random number generator inside a computer that is basically a superpower, and it connects perfectly to the next major segment of the story. If the mind creates reality, what happens when we dream?
Right.
What happens when we have a vivid nightmare? Does that nightmare just stay inside our head? Or does it start to leak out into the physical world?
That is a terrifying thought. But before we get to the plot implications of that, we have to talk about Langdon.
Oh, yes.
Because while Catherine is up there handling the future of science, Langdon is firmly handling the past. He's the history guy. And he drops an absolute bombshell about the Statue of Liberty.
He really does. And this is so classic Dan Brown, taking something you see every single day and just completely flipping it on its head.
Catherine pulls Langdon onto the stage during her lecture. She really puts him on the spot.
She does. She asks him to identify the most common religious symbol in human history.
And everyone in the audience, and probably everyone listening to us right now, automatically guesses the cross.
Which is a totally reasonable guess. But Langdon says no, it's not the cross. It's the halo.
The shiny ring over the head.
It's completely universal. You see the sun disk over Ra in ancient Egypt. You see the nimbus over Buddha in Asia. You see the golden plate behind the heads of Christian saints. It is a symbol that transcends every culture.
And what does it actually represent?
It represents enlightened consciousness, the glowing mind, the mind that is tuned into the signal perfectly.
And then he pivots to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Now, I've been to New York. I've seen Lady Liberty 1,000 times in person and in movies.
Right.
I was just assumed she was wearing, I don't know, a tiara, a stylish hat.
Langdon corrects that assumption immediately. He says, look at the spikes on her head. It is not a royal crown. It is a radiant crown.
A radiant crown.
Those spikes represent rays of light exploding outward from her mind.
She's literally radiating consciousness.
Exactly. Langdon explains that the sculptor, Bartholdi, wasn't just making a nice statue of freedom. He was directly channeling the ancient iconography of Helios, the sun god. The Statue of Liberty is arguably the largest pagan idol on Earth, and she is a massive monument to divine consciousness. She is a giant copper symbol of the exact thing Catherine is studying in her lab.
Such a cool narrative connection. You have the scientist saying, consciousness is the key to the universe. And the historian saying, yeah, we've been worshiping this concept for 5,000 years. We just completely forgot what the symbols meant.
It sets the thematic stage perfectly. It beautifully unifies the science and the history.
But of course, this is a thriller. So we can't just have nice lectures and cool statue trivia for 60 chapters. We need a villain. We need a physical threat.
Enter the golem.
This is where we shift drastically from science to pure gothic horror.
We really do.
But we need to explain the legend first. Because Gollum isn't just a cool code name like Agent 99. It's a very specific thing in Prague history. It's deep in the DNA of the city itself.
It is. The legend of the Golem dates back to the 16th century, and it centers on a real historical figure, Rabbi Judah Loew. He was a mystic, a scholar, a very prominent leader of the Jewish community in Prague.
And this was a uniquely bad time to be Jewish in Europe.
It was horrific. The ghetto was facing severe persecution, pogroms, violence. They were essentially defenseless against the mobs.
Right.
So the story goes that the rabbi went down to the banks of the river Vltava late at night. He gathered the river clay, the actual mud of the city itself, and he sculpted a massive, hulking man, a brute force protector.
A literal clay bodyguard.
Exactly. But it was just a statue as lifeless mud. To animate it, he used Kabbalah. He used the ancient magic of language. He wrote the Hebrew word emet on its forehead.
Emet.
Aleph, mem, tav. It means truth.
Truth.
Yeah.
And the concept of truth brings it to life. That is such a powerful idea in itself.
It wakes up, it patrols the ghetto, it violently defends the people. But as these stories almost always go, think Frankenstein, think 2001. A space odyssey, the creation eventually becomes dangerous.
It doesn't have a soul.
Right. It has no moral compass. It just has programming. It starts to become violent, uncontrollable. The rabbi realizes he has to destroy it before it destroys them.
But you can't really kill something that isn't actually alive.
So he reverses the linguistic spell. He approaches the golem, and he erases the first letter on its forehead, the Aleph. That leaves just the letters mem and tav. Emne.
Emet means
Death.
death.
That is so poetic. You take away the truth, and you instantly get death.
It really is. And our modern villain, the primary antagonist of The Secret of Secrets, completely embodies this legend. He's a massive man. We actually don't know his real name yet at this point in the story.
Just know him as the golem.
And he really, really leans into the bit.
He does. He wears a mask made of dried, cracked river clay. He covers his own skin in clay. He wears these heavy lead-lined boots.
Why the boot?
Well, he feels that he is a purely spiritual being, and without the heavy boots, he might literally float away. He needs to be physically tethered to the earth.
It speaks to a very deep psychosis. Absolutely. He believes he is a holy instrument, a protector of her, presumably Catherine, though in a very twisted, stalkerish kind of way.
He's terrifying. The source material describes him in his apartment in Prague. It's painted entirely black. He uses only black lights. And he engages in this extreme ritual to access what he calls the ether.
The ether is his term for that field of consciousness Catherine talks about, right?
But where Catherine uses an MRI machine and rigorous science, the golem uses pure pain. He uses extreme sensory deprivation.
Describe the ritual, because it's disturbing, but it tells us so much about who he is.
He strips down. He inserts a Chengbao baby, which is a specific type of silicone ball gag to completely silence himself. He lies in total pitch darkness. He creates a state of such extreme isolation that his brain begins to violently hallucinate. He dissociates from reality.
It's a dark mirror of Catherine's science. She tunes into the signal for knowledge and progress. He tunes in for violence and control. He believes he's literally receiving orders from the spiritual realm.
And we know he is highly effective. He has already gotten to one of the characters, Brigitte Gessner.
She was a colleague of Catherine's.
She was. He tortured her. He killed her. He forcibly extracted secrets about Catherine's work.
So the stakes are literally life and death right from the jump. And this leads us to the exact moment where the plot really ignites.
Yeah.
This is where the science of creating reality stops being a fun academic theory and starts getting very, very personal.
The nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catherine and Langdon are back at the Four Seasons Hotel. It's the middle of the night. Catherine suddenly wakes up screaming. She has just had a profoundly vivid, lucid nightmare.
She describes it to Langdon vividly, and remember, she is a trained scientific observer. She sees a woman standing right at the foot of her bed.
A woman in a black costume.
A woman wearing a black radiant crown, spikes coming right out of her head, like a dark, inverted version of the Statue of Liberty.
And she is holding a silver spear.
Yes. And most disturbingly, Catherine says the woman smelled intensely of death, decay, and sulfur.
And then in the dream, the entire hotel explodes. It's a very clear premonition of death. Langdon, of course, being the good rational skeptic, immediately comforts her.
He says, Catherine, you're stressed. You drank absinthe earlier, the Green Fairy.
Right, you're just tripping. Go back to sleep.
Which is what any rational person would do in that situation. Dreams are just dreams, right? Random neurons firing in the dark.
Until the morning.
This scene genuinely gave me chills. It's 6:50 a.m. Langdon is out jogging across the famous Charles Bridge. It's completely empty, misty, beautiful. And then he sees her.
He sees a woman walking straight toward him out of the thick fog.
She is wearing a black dress. She is wearing a black spiked tiara. She is holding a long silver spear.
Now, if I'm Langdon, I'm desperately thinking, okay, it's a cosplayer. It's a weird Prague street performer. It's just a bizarre coincidence.
He tries to think that. He desperately tries to cling to logic. But then she passes right by him, and the smell hits him.
The smell of sulfur and rot.
That is the absolute breaking point. Imagine being Robert Langdon in that exact moment. You are a man of logic. You are a tenured Harvard professor. You absolutely do not believe in ghosts or psychics.
Never.
But you are seeing, smelling, and hearing the exact specific thing your partner dreamed about just hours ago. A dream you didn't even have. You were just told about it.
The statistical probability of that happening is 0.
It is literally impossible.
Yeah.
And because it is impossible, his entire worldview just shatters. His amygdala completely hijacks his brain. He goes into pure primal panic mode. He assumes if the woman is real, the rest of the dream must be real too.
The explosion.
He sprints back to the hotel. He bursts into the lobby. He yanks the fire alarm. He screams at the manager to evacuate the building. He runs up to the room to find Catherine to save her, but she's already gone. And then the church bells start tolling.
7 a.m. The exact time of the explosion in Catherine's dream.
Yeah. He thinks he's out of time. He thinks the bomb is detonating right now. He's trapped in the room. The door is locked. He can't get out into the hallway. So he does the only thing he can think of.
He jumps out the window.
Straight into the Vltava River in February.
We call this the defenestration.
Which is such a great historical nod by Dan Brown. We have to explain this term.
Please do.
Defenestration literally comes from the Latin de, meaning out of, and fenestra, meaning window. It literally means the act of throwing someone out of a window.
And Prague is basically the world capital of defenestration.
It really is. The first defenestration happened in 1419. The second defenestration, the really famous one, happened in 1618 at Prague Castle. Protestant rebels threw 3 Catholic regents completely out of a high window.
And that actually started the 30 Years' War.
It did. So Langdon is unknowingly participating in a very violent, very local tradition here.
Except he threw himself out.
Yes, it was a self-defenestration.
So he hits the freezing water, he nearly drowns, he drags himself onto the dock, violently shivering, essentially freezing to death. He turns around to look at the hotel, waiting for the blast, and
Nothing.
no boom.
The hotel is completely fine. The birds are singing. The wealthy guests are evacuating out front because of the fire alarm, looking incredibly annoyed in their bathrobes.
Talk about a walk of shame.
Oh.
Or a swim of shame. He's standing there shivering in a towel. The hotel manager is absolutely furious with him, and he looks like a complete lunatic who just pulled a fire alarm because he saw a scary lady on a bridge.
But this is exactly where the twist comes in. Just as he's standing there trying to dry off, he is detained by authorities. Enter Captain Janacek.
This guy, he's cynical, he smokes constantly, he looks incredibly disheveled, but he's sharp. He detains Langdon and starts aggressively interrogating him.
Right.
And Langdon is thinking, okay, I look like an idiot. I had a severe panic attack. I'll pay the fine. But Janacek isn't arresting him for a false alarm.
No, Janacek reveals that there actually was a bomb.
This is a huge aha moment.
The police found a massive bomb in the hotel basement earlier that morning. They defused it quietly to avoid a citywide panic. But here is the specific detail that completely condemns Langdon. The bomb was set to detonate at exactly 7 a.m.
The exact time Langdon jumped out the window.
So from Janacek's purely materialist perspective, this isn't a psychic event. This is a criminal conspiracy. How could Langdon possibly know the exact time of the explosion unless he was directly involved in planting it?
Janacek thinks Langdon is a terrorist, or even worse, a publicity seeker. He accuses them of planting the bomb just to create a miracle.
Think about it from a cop's point of view. Catherine is writing a book about how the mind knows the future. What better marketing stunt than to miraculously predict a terrorist attack?
Buy my book, It Saved the Four Seasons.
It's a deeply cynical theory, but you can totally see why the detective thinks it.
It creates this fantastic narrative tension. Langdon claims precognitive dream, which sounds completely insane in a police interrogation room. Janacek claims domestic terrorism for PR, which sounds very plausible.
Yeah.
Is the central theme of the book materialism versus mysticism playing out as a tense legal drama?
Exactly. The reader obviously knows Langdon is innocent, but all the physical evidence makes him look incredibly guilty.
But while Langdon is shivering in a towel trying to explain telepathy to a Czech spy, the scope of the story suddenly zooms way out. This isn't just about a hotel in Prague anymore. We suddenly cut to New York City.
Yes, we meet Jonas Falkman. He is Catherine's editor. He is sitting at the Penguin Random House headquarters in Manhattan. He's about to finally read Catherine's manuscript, the manuscript that supposedly proves all this noetic science we've been talking about.
And he runs into a very serious tech problem. He tries to log into the secure virtual workspace, the SVW. This is military-grade encryption. It's where publishers keep the books that are way too valuable to lose. Partition not found.
The file's just gone.
It's not just a server glitch. It's a targeted purge. The manuscript has been completely wiped from the local server. It's been wiped from the local backups. It's even been wiped from the remote mirrored servers in Maryland.
Someone went to incredible, highly sophisticated lengths to make sure this book never sees the light of day. Why? What is actually in that book?
That is the defining question.
Yeah.
The implication is that the knowledge itself is dangerous. It connects back to that classic theme of the danger of knowledge. Throughout history, people burn books they fear.
This is a modern digital book burning.
Exactly. And it quickly gets physical. Falkman realizes he actually has a physical printout, thank God for old school editors who still like to read on paper.
Right.
He puts it in his bag. He tries to sneak out to a FedEx office down the street to make a physical copy. And he gets bagged.
Yeah.
Kidnapped right off the street in broad daylight in Manhattan.
At the exact same time, we cut to London. We meet a man named Finch and a shadowy, powerful organization simply called Q.
Not the Q from James Bond.
No, but very similar vibes. High-tech, unlimited budget, highly morally ambiguous. Finch looks at a screen and gives the order, execute now.
So we have a massive, coordinated global attack. The bomb in Prague, the kidnapping in New York, the deletion of the data in Maryland. This is a synchronized cleanup operation. They are trying to entirely erase Catherine Solomon and all of her work.
And Finch explicitly mentions a project called Threshold. This seems to be the absolute center of the conspiracy.
Threshold. It's a very evocative name. It implies a crossing over, the point of no return.
And here is a brilliant little linguistic nugget that Dan Brown tucked in there. Do you know what the word Prague actually means in the old Slavic language? Praha.
I have absolutely no idea.
Praha literally means threshold.
Oh, come on. That is brilliant. So the city itself is the code.
The city is the threshold between the East and West, between the magical and the real. And now all these separate threads, the Golem, the police, the global conspiracy, they all converge on one specific location in the city. Crucifix Bastion.
This is where the action really ramps up. Catherine has gone to meet Brigitte Gessner at her lab. The lab is built inside this renovated medieval fortress sitting on a ridge overlooking the city. Langdon and Captain Janicek rush there to find her.
But the Golem has obviously been there first. We know from the Golem's earlier perspective that he has already tortured Gessner. He killed her. He stole her RFID key card. He's looking for access to Threshold, which turns out to be a massive facility hidden directly under Prague.
An underground high-tech lab beneath an ancient city. That is peak Dan Brown right there. I love it.
It really is. Now, the Golem needs two specific things to get in. He has the key card, but he needs a second item, a physical item located inside Gessner's office at the Bastion.
So when Langdon and Janicek finally arrive at the Bastion, the vibe is just wrong. The door is locked. No one answers. Janicek, being the subtle, delicate guy he is, just has his lieutenant shoot out the glass door.
They violently breach the lab. They find the office completely empty. Gessner is missing. Catherine is missing. But Langdon notices something. The art.
The art. This is exactly where being a symbologist finally pays off in a tactical situation. He sees a massive wall sculpture, a Paul Evans piece.
Describe it for us.
So Paul Evans was a real artist known for brutalist furniture and art. Heavy metals, welded steel, really jagged edges. The piece looks like a fortress wall itself. Langdon sees this massive metal grid sculpture just leaning against the drywall.
And Langdon notices that key detail. It's leaning. It's not mounted.
Which is incredibly weird for a piece of art worth $250,000.
Yeah.
You don't just lean it against a drywall like a cheap poster in a college dorm room.
No, Langdon realizes it's not just art. It's a heavy door or a hiding spot.
And this is the major cliffhanger of this entire section. Langdon is sitting in the waiting room under armed guard by Janicek's Lieutenant Pavel.
Right.
Pavel looks away for maybe 2 seconds to check a dating app, which, by the way, is a hilarious touch of modern realism in the middle of a high-stakes thriller.
The app is called Dream Zone, right?
Yes, Dream Zone.
Yeah.
So he checks his phone, and when he looks back up, Langdon is completely gone.
Vanished from a sealed room.
He went into the art, didn't he?
It's the only logical explanation. He crossed the threshold, quite literally.
So let's pull back for a second and look at the big picture here. We've unpacked the plot, but what are the really big themes bubbling right under the surface?
Yeah.
Because this story clearly isn't just about escaping a clay monster. It's about how we view the world itself.
The central tension is definitely materialism versus mysticism. You have Janacek strongly representing the hard, cold facts. If a bomb goes off at 7 Har and you knew about it beforehand, you are a terrorist. That is simple cause and effect. That is materialism.
And then you have Langdon and Catherine representing the mystical or the noetic side. They're essentially saying, I knew about the bomb because consciousness is not bound by linear time.
Exactly. And the narrative is forcing these two opposing worldviews to fight it out. The antagonist, the golem, is actually a violent, extreme version of the mystical side. He's so detached from physical reality, he thinks he's an actual clay monster.
And the conspiracy Finch and Q over in London, they seem to be the extreme version of materialist control, trying to suppress this new knowledge at all costs.
It's interesting that the bad guys are trying to completely destroy the book. It really drives home the idea that ideas are far more dangerous than weapons.
The danger of knowledge.
It's a very Gnostic idea, that there are deep secrets the world just isn't ready for yet. If Catherine successfully proves that we create reality with our own minds, think about the sheer chaos that could cause if everyone realized they had godlike power.
It would be complete anarchy.
Right.
Or a utopia, I guess, depending on how optimistic you are about human nature. But if I can create reality and you can create reality, and we fundamentally disagree on what reality should be, who wins?
That is the core conflict. And that's the massive question the book seems to be asking. Are we ready for this shift? Catherine obviously thinks yes. The conspiracy very violently thinks no.
I also really want to give a shout out to Prague as a character.
Oh, absolutely.
The way the mist is described, the ancient statues, the deep history of alchemy, it makes the impossible seem entirely plausible. If you told me a clay monster was walking around Times Square, I'd say no way. But in the winding, dark alleys of Prague, in the shadow of the castle,
I buy it.
I absolutely believe it.
It creates a perfect liminal space, a place where the veil between worlds is incredibly thin. That's exactly why the story works so well.
So, where does this leave us at the end of chapter 22? We have Langdon missing, presumably inside a secret tunnel behind a giant piece of brutalist art.
We have Catherine missing, highly likely captured by the golem, or worse.
We have a groundbreaking manuscript that has been purged from digital existence, except for one single paper copy stuffed in a bag in a van somewhere in New York.
And we have a countdown to, well, something massive involving Threshold.
And we still don't even know the full extent of the science. We've only just scratched the surface with the precognition experiment.
It's a heck of a setup for the rest of the book.
It really is. I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over before we wrap up today. We talked heavily about the brain as a receiver. We talked about time being nonlinear.
Right.
If the brain actually spikes before the image is chosen by the computer, if Langdon sees the woman on the bridge before the bomb ever goes off, it raises a truly terrifying question about free will.
Go on.
If the future already exists out there for us to essentially remember it, are we actually making any choices at all? If the brain reacts to the car crash before the computer even picks the car crash, was the car crash just completely inevitable?
It really suggests that the script is already written.
Exactly.
Right.
Are we writing our own story, or are we just reading the pages as we turn them? Are we actively creating our future, or are we just catching up to it?
That is the ultimate mind-bending question of noetics, and I have a strong feeling the answer lies somewhere down in that underground lab, just waiting for Langdon to find it.
I think you're absolutely right. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive. I'm honestly ready to go buy a ticket to Prague right now, although maybe I'll stay on the first floor of the hotel. No high windows for me.
Probably safer that way.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the secret of secrets. Stay curious, keep asking those big questions, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.
Imagine this scenario for a second.
Okay.
You are 29 years old.
Yeah.
And by every standard metric of the American dream, or I guess in this case, the Canadian dream, you are absolutely crushing it.
Right. You're checking all the boxes.
Exactly. You have the job, you have the nice apartment, you have all the stuff that is, it's supposed to signal adulthood.
Markers of success.
Yeah. You have even managed to pay off $30,000 in consumer debt. You have officially made it.
That really sounds like the checklist we were all handed at graduation, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Get the job, get the stuff, be happy. Strictly in that order.
Right. But here is the catch. You are standing on a hiking trail in Whistler, British Columbia.
Beautiful area.
Gorgeous. It is 2 days before your birthday.
Yeah.
You are looking at this stunning turquoise water of Cheakamus Lake.
Oh,
It is one of those views that should absolutely be on a postcard.
right.
And instead of feeling accomplished or happy or even just content, you feel completely and utterly empty.
And that right there, that is the terrifying paradox of the modern condition.
Yeah.
We call it the everything trap. You can have literally everything you were supposed to want, and yet you find yourself constantly itching for more.
Like it's never enough.
Exactly. It is a hunger that consumption just cannot fill.
And that is exactly where we find Kate Flanders at the beginning of our deep dive today. We are looking at her book, The Year of Less.
Which is a fascinating read.
It really is. And I have to be honest with you, when I first picked this source material up, I rolled my eyes a little bit.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, I just thought, okay, great, another budgeting book. Don't buy lattes, save your pennies, compound interest. Boring.
Right. The usual personal finance lecture.
Yeah, but this is something entirely different.
It really is something else. I think to categorize The Year of Less as just a personal finance book does it a massive disservice.
Oh, absolutely.
It is actually a psychological study. It's an excavation of the self. The source material we have here outlines a mission that goes way, way beyond saving a few dollars.
Right. Because the mission isn't just to save money. The mission of this deep dive is to answer a genuinely terrifying question.
Which is?
What happens when you stop using money to numb your emotions?
Well,
Yeah.
Like what actually happens when you strip away the excess to find out who you actually are underneath all this stuff?
And that is a question most of us are way too scared to ask.
Definitely.
Because the answer requires silence. It requires sitting with discomfort. And in our modern world, we have built entire industries designed specifically to prevent us from ever having to sit with discomfort.
Yeah, distraction is a huge business.
Massive.
So let's set the stage properly. Kate is on this hike in Whistler. Her friends are talking about the next big steps.
Buying houses.
Getting married, having kids, the standard script.
Right.
And Kate realizes she's still working on herself. She feels like she is just spinning her wheels.
Stuck in neutral?
Exactly. And she says to her friends, almost on a whim, I've been thinking about doing an experiment where I don't shop for a while, like maybe a year.
It is so interesting that it starts that way, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Just almost as a verbalized thought experiment. A what if. But because she said it out loud to witnesses, it suddenly became real.
It's the power of articulation. Once it is out there in the air, you actually have to deal with it.
Exactly.
And her friends are supportive, but they obviously have questions.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the rules of the game.
The parameters.
Because if you were going to do a shopping ban for a full year, and she specifically chose July 7th, 2014 to July 6th, 2015, you need very strict parameters.
You have to.
You can't just wing this or you will cheat.
No, ambiguity is the absolute enemy of a challenge like this.
For sure.
If you don't define the edges, your brain will instantly bargain its way out of it. We are excellent lawyers for our own bad habits.
We really are. So let's unpack the no list because this is intense.
It is brutal.
No new clothes, no shoes, no accessories.
Which is already tough for a lot of people.
Right, but it goes further. No books.
And she's a writer.
Exactly, which for a writer is huge. No magazines, no electronics, no household items. And the kicker, the one that I think would break most people,
Let me guess.
no takeout coffee.
Ah, yes. The coffee rule. That one is fascinating to me.
Okay, wait. I have an honest question here.
Right.
No takeout coffee. That feels, I don't know, a little performative, doesn't it?
Performative how?
Like a $5 latte is really the thing destroying her life.
Yeah.
It seems like such a cliche millennial restriction, like the whole stop buying avocado toast advice.
I completely thought that too at first.
Right.
It sounds like the classic latte factor financial advice, which as we know is usually nonsense.
Exactly.
But when you actually look at her data and her reasoning in the book, it wasn't about the $5.
Okay.
It was about the dependency. It was about the fact that she physically and mentally could not get through her morning without that specific transaction.
Interesting.
It was a vice. It was a leak in her willpower, not just her wallet.
Wow. Okay, we will definitely get into the coffee withdrawal later because, spoiler alert, it is very real and it is very ugly.
I can imagine.
Now, let's look at the yes list because Obviously, she has to survive the year.
Right. She can't just forage in the woods.
Exactly. So, groceries are allowed, basic kitchen supplies,
Yeah.
toiletries, but only when she runs out.
That clause right there is crucial. Only when she runs out.
Why is that so important?
Because it stops the stockpiling behavior, buying 5 tubes of toothpaste just because they are on sale.
Like that.
We all do. But doing that is still shopping. It still triggers the dopamine hit of acquiring something.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cleaning products are also okay. Gifts for others are okay.
Nice.
And she created what she called an approved shopping list. I thought this was incredibly smart.
It is the only way to survive a ban like this.
She looked ahead at the entire year and asked herself, what do I genuinely know I will need?
Right, because life doesn't stop just because you are on a shopping ban. Things break. Events happen. You can't just walk around barefoot if your winter boots fall apart in December.
So her list was very specific. She needed a replacement bed because hers was 13 years old and literally falling apart.
That's a valid need.
She allowed herself one outfit for multiple weddings she had to attend. She needed workout pants because she was down to exactly one pair,
Fair enough.
and boots for the Canadian winter. And that was it.
It is a very pragmatic list. It essentially distinguishes between want and need before the emotional impulse strikes.
Exactly.
That is the key. You make the decision when you are calm, so you don't have to make it when you are stressed out at the mall.
And there was one more constraint that raised the stakes considerably. She committed to staying publicly accountable on her blog.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Why do you think that matters so much to the process?
Public accountability adds this layer of social pressure that can be incredibly effective. It turns a private struggle into a public performance of integrity.
Wow. Performance of integrity.
Yeah. If she fails in private, she just disappoints herself. She can rationalize that.
Right.
But if she fails on the blog, she disappoints an entire audience.
Yeah.
And shame is a very powerful motivator, for better or worse.
That is so true. So the rules are set. The date is set. July 7th, her 29th birthday. She is ready to start.
Here we go.
But here's the crazy thing about stopping new inputs. Suddenly, you are forced to look at what is already in your house.
Oh, yeah. You can't ignore it anymore.
You can't distract yourself with the shiny new thing. And that silence, it gets very loud.
It really does.
For Kate, it triggered this massive, almost frantic need to purge what she already owned.
This is what we call the taking inventory phase. And in the book, it is triggered by such a mundane, relatable incident.
We have to talk about the can opener incident.
Yes,
Because it sounds like a joke, but it is actually this perfect horror movie moment for someone who thinks they're a neat freak.
it really perfectly sets the scene for the whole Great Purge.
So picture this. It is July in Vancouver. And if you know Vancouver, usually it's pretty mild, but this is a heat wave.
Okay.
We were talking 34 degrees Celsius, which is about 93 Fahrenheit. In Kate's apartment, absolutely no air conditioning.
Just a stifling hotbox.
Exactly. She is sweating, she is irritable, and she is starving.
A dangerous combination.
She decides to make the simplest thing possible. A black bean salad, no cooking required, just open a can, dump it in a bowl, eat.
The bar for effort is basically on the floor.
Exactly. So she goes to the drawer, she is digging around, she finds forks, she actually counts them later, and she has 21 forks for one person.
21 forks.
She finds spatulas, ladles, whisks, but she cannot find the can opener.
And that is when the panic starts to set in.
She tears the kitchen apart.
Yeah.
She is checking the dishwasher, she is checking the back of the cupboards. She is literally surrounded by hundreds of kitchen tools that she bought with her own hard-earned money.
Right.
And she cannot perform the basic function of feeding herself.
That is the moment the illusion finally breaks. Kate viewed herself as this type A organized person.
Yeah, she really did.
Her childhood desk had pencil crayons arranged in rainbow order. Her apartment looked like a magazine spread. She even mentions people compared it to a Twilight movie set.
Wow.
But that order was entirely superficial.
It was a complete facade.
It was structure masking pure chaos. When she couldn't find that can opener, it wasn't just about the black beans.
Oh.
It was the sudden realization that her possessions weren't serving her. They were actively obstructing her.
That is a great way to put it.
She was paying rent to store 21 forks that were effectively hiding her dinner from her.
So the can opener is the breaking point.
Yeah.
She just snaps. She decides one day has finally come.
And what does she do?
She empties every single drawer, closet, and cupboard onto the floor. Just a massive pile. And she confronts what she calls her fantasy self.
The fantasy self, that is a concept that just hits so hard.
It really does.
It is the idea that the items in our home represent who we wish we were, not who we actually are.
The kitchen was bad, but the closet is where the real psychological warfare was happening.
Oh, always.
This is where she really digs into the concept of the fantasy self. And I think this is going to hit home for a lot of you listening.
Absolutely. The fantasy self is essentially that ghost living in your closet.
The ghost in the closet.
Is the version of you that you think you should be, or secretly wish you were, represented by the stuff you buy for that specific person.
Right. So for Kate, she realized she actually wears a uniform. She is a freelance writer. She works from home. She wears jeans and loose t-shirts.
Very comfortable.
That is 90% of her life. But her closet was stocked for 3 different women who simply did not exist.
Right. First, you had the past professional.
Yes.
She used to work in government, so she had these racks of stiff slacks, peacoats, blazers. She hadn't worked there in years. She was never going back, but she kept the costume.
Why do we do that? Seriously, is it a safety net?
It is identity clutter.
Identity clutter. I like that.
Getting rid of the blazer feels like you are finally admitting, I am no longer the kind of person who has a fancy office job.
Right.
Even if you completely hated that job. It is the loss of a potential identity. It is grieving a past version of yourself.
Wow. And then she had the body image clutter, the fat girl clothes, and the skinny girl clothes.
And this is arguably the most toxic part of the closet.
Total.
She had the larger clothes just in case she failed and gained the weight back, which is basically betting against yourself.
Yeah, it's planning for failure.
Exactly. And then she had the tiny clothes for motivation.
Which, let's be honest, never works.
It never works. You don't look at a pair of size 0 jeans and feel inspired. You look at them and feel immense shame.
Yeah.
You feel like you are failing every single morning when you get dressed. They aren't clothes anymore. They are bullies on a hanger.
Bullies on a hanger. I like that. Or, well, I hate that because it is so true.
It is a harsh reality.
So she did something radical. She didn't just fold them and organize them better. She evicted them.
Good for her.
She ended up donating 4 garbage bags of clothes. She was left with a half-full dresser.
Which is physically lightening, but I imagine psychologically it left her feeling very exposed.
Oh, and sure.
Because now there's nowhere left to hide.
But if you think the clothes were hard to deal with, let's talk about the just-in-case box.
Oh, well, boy.
The ultimate repository of guilt.
Ah, yes. The sunk cost fallacy, perfectly preserved in a cardboard box.
She found a box with 30 DVDs, 30 CDs, and a cassette tape.
A cassette tape.
Yes. Now keep in mind, she doesn't even have a way to play these things anymore. She doesn't own a CD player or a VCR.
So they are literally useless.
They are literally useless plastic to her, but when she goes to toss them in the donation pile, she hears Dad's voice in her head.
We spent good money on that.
Yes. The universal cry of parents everywhere. We spent good money on that.
This is the sunk cost fallacy in its absolute purest emotional form.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, the money is already gone. Keeping the CD in a box doesn't bring the $20 back.
Right.
But throwing it away feels like finalizing the waste. It feels like formally admitting you made a mistake.
Kate has this brilliant insight in the source material. She says that holding on to unused items is holding on to wasted money, wasted dreams, and wasted opportunities.
That is so powerful.
And the only way to move forward is to let them go.
It is a complete reframing of the situation. Instead of seeing the donation as the waste, you start to see the keeping as the waste.
Yes.
The item is being wasted sitting in your dark box. It might actually be used and loved by someone else. The actual waste happened at the point of purchase, not the point of disposal.
That changes everything when you look at it that way.
It really does.
Now, we have to talk about the heaviest item she found in the purge.
The rum bottle.
The rum bottle. This is where the story shifts from just decluttering to something much, much darker.
Yes. This is the exact moment where the physical clutter and the emotional addiction intersect perfectly.
For context, for everyone listening, Kate had been sober for 18 months when she started this shopping ban.
Which is a huge accomplishment.
It is. She has successfully quit drinking. But buried deep in a box, underneath her diplomas and her photo albums, which are her most precious things, she found what she called a secret treasure chest.
And inside?
Inside was an unopened bottle of cheap white rum.
Now, why do you keep a bottle of cheap rum hidden when you were 18 months sober?
She said she kept it just in case.
There's that phrase again.
Just in case she had a really bad day.
Right.
Just in case she had a broken heart. just in case she decided this whole sober living thing just wasn't for her anymore.
It was a safety hatch.
Yeah.
It was a test. And frankly, it was a ticking time bomb. Keeping that bottle was her way of keeping the door to her addiction slightly ajar.
Just a crack.
Exactly. It was her subconscious saying, I am sober for now, not I am sober.
And the physical act of pouring it down the sink, not drinking it, not giving it away to a friend, but pouring it right down the drain was deeply symbolic.
Absolutely.
She calls it saying goodbye to wasted dreams.
It is the defining moment she fully commits to her present self, rather than holding space for a destructive past self. It is an act of violent self-love.
Violent self-love, that is perfectly said.
Thank you.
By the end of this entire purge, she had gotten rid of 43% of her belongings.
That is nearly half of everything she owned.
43%. She filled her car twice with donations.
Which is incredible, honestly. But here's the catch. Once the stuff is gone and the shopping has completely stopped, the brain starts screaming.
Because you have taken away the pacifier.
Exactly.
And that leads us perfectly into the psychology of addiction. Because addiction is essentially like a giant game of whack-a-mole. You knock one bad habit down and another one pops right up.
Absolutely. We have to look at Kate's personal history here to understand this.
Right.
She is very open in the book about having an addictive personality. She talks about alcohol, she talks about binge eating, and she talks about spending.
But she makes this really crucial point that she never identified as a shopaholic.
Why not?
Because she didn't look like the movie poster version of one.
Ah, the stereotype.
Right. She wasn't carrying bags of designer clothes. She wasn't wearing expensive high heels. She was buying books.
Which seems harmless.
Exactly. She was buying household items. She was buying mindless stuff from Target.
And that is a very dangerous misconception, that addiction has a specific look to it.
Yeah.
If you are buying books that you never read just to soothe your anxiety, that is the exact same psychological mechanism as buying a Prada bag to soothe anxiety.
The mechanism is identical.
The price point is different, sure, but the dopamine loop is the exact same. It is all about the hunt and the acquisition, not the actual object itself.
She introduces this concept of the shopping blackout.
This is wild.
We all know what an alcohol blackout is. You wake up and you don't remember what happened the night before. But she said she would have spending blackouts.
This is that dissociative state. You walk into a store for one specific thing, you drift through the aisles, you swipe your card, and you walk out with 5 things.
It happens so fast.
And if someone asked you in the parking lot, why did you buy that candle? You couldn't give them a rational answer.
You really couldn't.
You were on autopilot. You were completely blacked out.
And just like sobering up from alcohol, sobering up from shopping brings real physical withdrawal.
Yes, it does.
And for Kate, going back to that strict rule we talked about earlier, the most physical withdrawal came from the coffee, the latte factor.
This section really resonated with me because she wasn't just addicted to the caffeine.
No.
She was addicted to the ritual.
She talks about the morning tired feeling and how the literal walk to the coffee shop was the solution.
The journey itself was the cure.
Right. Or the mid-morning break reward.
Exactly. The coffee acts as the punctuation mark in the day.
Oh, I love that. Punctuation mark.
Yeah. I did a good job. I get a latte. I woke up. I get a latte. I have to deal with a really difficult email. I get a latte.
The answer to everything.
When you take that away, you have to rewrite the punctuation of your entire life. You have to find totally new ways to transition from sleep to work or from work to rest.
And she tried to replace it.
Yeah.
She really did. She started making coffee at home. She carried a reusable travel mug.
Good strategist.
But she admits openly she missed it. She craved the takeout cup. It wasn't just the taste of the coffee. It was the treat.
The feeling of being served.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this brings up a huge point in the book. The time frame myth.
Oh, the famous 21 days to form a habit rule.
Exactly. We hear that all the time.
Everywhere.
Just stick with it for 3 weeks and you are magically cured.
It is complete pop psychology nonsense.
Kate absolutely confirms that. She was 2 full months into the ban. It is August now.
Right.
And she is still fighting constant daily triggers.
Because it is not just a simple habit. It is a deeply ingrained emotional coping mechanism.
Right.
This is what we call addiction transfer.
Addiction transfer.
She quit drinking, so all of that addiction energy moved to shopping. Now she has completely quit shopping, and that energy has literally nowhere left to go. She has to actually sit with the raw feelings.
And sitting with those feelings is about to get a whole lot harder for her.
Oh, yeah. The storm is coming.
Because we are entering the emotional bedrock of this entire story. It is September, and Kate falls in love.
Enter Andrew.
Andrew. He seems totally perfect. They meet, they instantly connect. They literally bond over spreadsheets.
That's a very, very specific love language right there.
Let me show you my Excel formula.
Exactly. Talk dirty to me in macros.
Right. But for her, that was real intimacy. They are comparing net worths and budget compatibility.
Very practical.
They are like puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
She says they fit together perfectly. And so she lets her guard down. She thinks this is it. This could really be something.
And that vulnerability is the key to everything that follows. Because when you finally open the armor, you can get stabbed.
And she does.
Sadly, yeah.
She goes to visit him. Everything is great until the very last night. He suddenly gets quiet. He puts up a wall. He turns his back to her in bed. And then he just ends it.
Out of nowhere.
He tells her he doesn't want a serious relationship.
It is a classic, incredibly painful rejection.
Yeah.
And for someone with a long history of numbing pain, this is a code red emergency. This is the exact moment where the addict usually relapses hard.
Her immediate physical reaction is so visceral. She talks about having aching bones, pure loneliness.
Your body physically feels the rejection.
And her brain immediately goes to the old script. Fix it. Buy something.
The brain is desperately trying to regain some form of control. It's saying, I cannot control this man's feelings. I cannot control this painful rejection, but I can control this transaction.
I can control the credit card.
Exactly. I can control swiping this card and obtaining an object.
The specific list of things she almost bought is so revealing. I want to go through them one by one because each one represents a totally different psychological bandage.
Let's do it.
First on the list, a daily planner.
Classic. The fresh start fallacy.
Yes.
If I buy this specific planner, I will magically be organized. I will be productive. I will become a brand new version of myself who didn't just get unceremoniously dumped.
It's hoping for a clean slate.
It is an attempt to buy order in a moment of pure emotional chaos.
Even though she historically abandons all planners by May, she knows this about herself, but the urge completely overrides the logic.
Because the urge isn't about logic at all. It is about hope.
Right. Next up, new clothes. She suddenly felt, in her words, old and shabby compared to other women.
The comparison trap.
She specifically wanted an Empire waist dress just to feel cute again.
That is directly addressing the core wound of the rejection.
How so?
Her brain is saying, he didn't want me because I wasn't attractive enough. If I buy this new dress, I will be attractive again.
Wow.
It is a desperate attempt to purchase self-worth and desirability off a rag.
That is so sad, but so relatable.
I've all been there.
Then a new cell phone. She somehow convinced herself that her phone being a little bit slow was a major life-ruining problem.
This is classic displacement.
Displacement.
Yes, I am miserable. Why? Oh, it must be because my phone takes too long to load an app.
Blaming the object.
It is so much easier to be mad at an inanimate phone than to be sad about a boy breaking your heart.
And finally, a chef's knife. Because suddenly, in the midst of this breakup, she decided she absolutely couldn't cook without a brand new sharp knife.
It's frantic. It really is. It is the brain grasping at absolutely anything at all to change the current painful reality.
Right.
Maybe if I can just chop vegetables better, the pain in my chest will stop.
But here is the massive victory. And honestly, this is the turning point of the whole deep dive for me.
Me too.
She compares this breakup with Andrew to her previous major breakup with a guy named Chris.
And that relationship with Chris was incredibly toxic. It was abusive.
It was very bad. And when she finally left Chris, she bought her freedom.
At a huge cost.
She spent $20,000 in just 3 months. She bought completely matching furniture. She bought a whole new wardrobe. She even bought a $15,000 car because Chris used to completely control her access to his truck.
That 20 grand was the literal price of numbing.
Yeah.
She essentially built a movie set of a happy life so she wouldn't have to actually feel the trauma of the abusive relationship she just escaped.
Just paving over it.
She literally bought a new identity to escape the old one.
But this time, with Andrew,
What happened?
she put all those items, the planner, the dress, the phone, the knife, into the online shopping cart.
The moment of truth.
And then she closed the tabs.
Wow.
She closed the tabs.
She stayed with the pain.
Yes.
She let herself actually feel the aching bones. She let herself feel the crushing loneliness.
Yeah. And the most important part, she didn't die.
She says she just kept living.
That is the most profound lesson in this entire source material.
I agree completely.
The urge to shop is very often an urge to fast forward through the bad parts of life.
When you stop shopping, you actually have to live through the bad parts in real time. And surviving that builds a kind of inner resilience that a credit card can never, ever buy.
It is incredible. She won that internal battle. But while she is winning these huge internal fights, the external world is starting to get a little weird about her choices.
Oh, society does not like when you stop playing the game.
Which brings us to the social cost of living with less.
Yes. When you suddenly change the script, the audience gets very uncomfortable.
In October, Kate posts these before and after photos of her apartment on her blog.
To show the progress.
Right. Now remember, she has purged 43% of her stuff. The place is super clean. It is minimal.
Sounds lovely.
And the internet does exactly what the internet always does.
The trolls arrive in full force.
They absolutely did. They accused her of staging the photos. They completely tore her down, calling her home soulless.
Soulless, wow.
But the comment that stung the absolute loop most, and this connects right back to the breakup we just talked about, was a comment that explicitly said, "No wonder you got dumped. You have no clothes to date in."
That is such a cruel, highly specific weaponization of consumer culture.
It really is nasty.
It implies that to be lovable, to be worthy of any kind of romantic partnership, you must maintain a constantly rotating wardrobe.
Yeah.
It directly equates consumption with desirability. It sends the message, if you aren't buying new things, you aren't even trying.
It's just mean. But it wasn't just anonymous trolls on the blog. It was her real-life friends, too. She talks about the crab bucket effect.
Right. The old analogy, if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one crab tries to crawl out and escape, the other crabs will literally pull it back down into the bucket.
She had a friend visit her newly purged apartment, and this friend was visibly shocked by how clean it was.
Okay.
And her reaction was super defensive. She looked at Kate and said, "I don't want my closet to look like yours. You'll never meet a man with those outfits."
Wow. That is not about Kate at all. That is entirely about the friend.
Right. Why did someone else's clean closet make you angry?
That is the mirror effect in action.
The mirror effect.
When Kate clears all her clutter, she becomes a walking mirror, reflecting her friend's chaos right back at her.
Oh, I see.
The friend sees Kate's tidy, minimalist closet and immediately feels intense shame about her own overstuffed, messy closet.
So she attacks.
Exactly. She attacks Kate's closet to make herself feel better about her own choices.
Basically saying, I don't want to be like you anyway.
Right. Your way is wrong, which means my way must be right. It is a pure defense mechanism. We really hate when people close to us change because it forces us to ask why we aren't changing.
Kate draws this really interesting parallel in the book to when she quit drinking. She says the social reaction was exactly the same.
It is the sober analogy.
Yeah.
When you tell people you stop drinking, they almost always ask, don't you miss it? Or they try to push it. Just have one sip, it won't hurt.
Or they just stop inviting you out altogether.
Yeah, right. And through this shopping ban, she realized that her friendships were highly compartmentalized.
Separated by activity.
Yes. She had drinking friends. She had drug friends from her younger years. And she had shopping friends.
So the shopping friends are the ones you go to the mall with, or you text each other about massive fails, or you bond over the whole treat yourself mentality.
And when you remove the actual shopping from the equation, you realize that the commerce was the relationship.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
Without the transaction, there is literally no connection. You weren't really friends. You were just consumption partners.
She says she felt totally ostracized.
Yeah.
Her friends just assumed that because she couldn't shop, she couldn't do anything at all.
Right.
So like, oh, Kate can't spend money, so we obviously can't invite her to dinner.
Which is incredibly painful.
It is.
It is a form of deep social rejection based entirely on your refusal to participate in the consumer economy. It really highlights how deeply our social lives are entwined with spending money. We practically don't know how to hang out with each other without opening our wallets.
But, and this is important, it wasn't all bad. She did find her people eventually.
Yes.
And that leads us to the idea of finding the right tribe. You lose some friends, you gain some friends, or rather, you deepen the relationships that actually matter.
Having a strong support system is everything when it comes to long-term behavioral change.
Kate identifies two very distinct types of friends in the book. Type 1 is the enabler.
We all know one.
The friend who celebrates all your bad decisions. Treat yourself, you deserve it, buy the bag.
And honestly, we all love those friends in the moment.
And we do.
They make us feel really good about our total lack of discipline. They validate our worst impulses.
And then there is type 2, The accountable friend.
The rare one.
The one who actually stops you from buying the bag.
Yeah.
The one who physically drives you to the gym when you text them saying you want to skate.
These are the friends who actually care about your long-term well-being, not just your short-term pleasure.
Exactly.
They are willing to risk being annoying to help you succeed.
And for Kate, that friend was Emma. Emma sounds absolutely amazing. Kate calls her method the delirious laughter approach.
Humor is such a fantastic tool for accountability.
Kate would text Emma completely freaking out saying, I need to buy this. I am going to die if I don't buy this.
A total spiral.
And Emma would just laugh at her and calmly repeat Kate's own rules right back to her. She would say, is it on the approved list? No. And put it down.
It is gentle, but it is firm.
Yes.
It completely cuts through the frantic rationalization. It is holding up a mirror, but a very kind one.
Then there's Claire. Claire is the sober internet friend.
I love Claire's role in this.
They met completely through blogging. They connected deeply over their shared experiences with debt and sobriety. And they finally meet in real life for the very first time at Claire's wedding in Denver.
And this trip to Denver is basically the final boss battle of this section of the book.
It really, really is. Because here she is in a brand new city.
Out of her routine.
She has saved a lot of money. She actually has the cash sitting in her bank account because of the ban.
Dangerous territory.
And she sees an e-reader on sale in a store.
Now remember the strict rules we discussed earlier. No electronics.
But the voice comes back. And this is what is so incredibly scary about addiction.
It waits.
She is months and months into this ban. She has survived the horrible breakup. She has purged the apartment. But standing right there in that store, the voice whispers to her, you need this. You haven't bought anything for yourself in so long.
You deserve a reward.
You have the money now.
That logic is so insidious.
How so?
I saved money by not shopping, so now I should use that money to go shopping.
Right.
It completely undoes the entire logic of the ban. It is the brain trying to hijack her success to fuel the old addiction.
She didn't buy it. She walked away.
Huge win.
But the struggle was incredibly real. And I think that is actually the perfect place to leave the narrative portion of this deep dive.
Why is that?
Because the point isn't really whether she bought the e-reader or not. The point is that the voice never truly goes away forever. You just get much, much better at arguing with it.
Exactly. The just-in-case box isn't just a physical cardboard box sitting in your closet.
No.
It is a box in your mind.
Yeah.
It is the mental space where we keep all our excuses, our deep fears, and our constant desire to numb out.
So let's bring it all home for the listeners. What is the ultimate takeaway from all of these sources?
The core takeaway is that the year of less isn't really about the math.
Even though the math is good.
Yes, Kate ended up living on 51% of her income and saving 31%.
That is amazing.
The numbers are incredibly impressive, but the real story is that she finally removed the buffer.
The buffer between herself and her life.
Yes. Shopping, drinking, hoarding, these are all just buffers we place between our conscious minds and our painful, raw emotions. When you remove the buffer, you have to feel the pain. But on the flip side, you also get to feel the genuine joy, the pride, and the clarity. You essentially get your life back.
That is incredibly powerful. So here's our final challenge to you listening right now.
Think about this one.
We all have a version of the takeout coffee. We all have some small daily habit we genuinely think we need just to survive the day.
Absolutely.
And we all have a just-in-case box somewhere in our lives. Maybe it is filled with old computer cords, or maybe it is filled with old resentments.
So ask yourself, if you stopped buying things to soothe yourself today,
If you stripped away all the retail therapy,
what specific feelings would be waiting for you in the silence?
and are you brave enough to finally face them? That is definitely something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
We will see you next time.
Okay, I want you to picture this. It is the definition of a domestic nightmare. You're out for a run, just a normal evening, right? You're trying to clear your head, maybe burn off a little frustration from the day. You jog back to your house, your forever home, the one place you feel safe.
Right.
You walk up the path, your heart rate is slowing down, you slide your key into the lock, and it stops.
It doesn't turn.
It doesn't turn, it doesn't fit. And in that split second, your brain probably goes to the logical place. Did I grab the wrong key? Is the lock jammed? But then you knock.
Yeah.
And the door opens.
And this is where the logic completely falls apart.
Completely. Because standing there is a woman. And she doesn't just look like a stranger. She looks like a high-definition, upgraded, polished version of you.
Oh, wow.
She is wearing your favorite black velvet dress, the one you were saving for a special occasion. And then your husband, the man you share a bed with, a mortgage with, a life with, walks up behind her.
This is the moment that breaks people.
He wraps his arm around her waist, looks you dead in the eye with zero recognition, and tells the police that she is his wife.
Yeah.
And that he has never seen you before in his life.
It's just a terrifying premise. It taps into that primal fear of erasure, of being completely replaced in your own existence.
Exactly. And that is the hook that Alice Feeney uses to absolutely drag us into the source material we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into the twists and turns of My Husband's Wife.
And honestly, calling it twisting is an understatement. We're looking at a narrative that is essentially a puzzle box. It's told from three very conflicting perspectives.
Yeah.
We have identity theft, a disturbingly predictive tech company, secret tunnels, and this small Cornish village called Hope Fall, where the architecture is hostile and the locals are, well, let's just say they have secrets.
Our mission today is to try and untangle this mess, because by the time we get through these sources, your head is going to be spinning. We need to figure out who is lying, who is dying, and honestly, who is actually married to whom.
It's a psychological horror story masquerading as a domestic thriller. And to solve it, we have to start with the person standing on that doorstep, getting erased in real time. This is the perspective of a character named Eden Fox.
Right, Eden. She starts off as our anchor. She's an artist, she's dealing with empty nest syndrome, and she's living in this incredible, creepy house called Spyglass.
And we have to talk about the house.
Oh, we have to. It feels like a character in itself.
It's crucial to the mood. Spyglass is described as this modern masterpiece built right into the cliffs overlooking the village. It has these white, wavy walls and massive floor-to-ceiling windows shaped like human eyes.
Which is just why? I mean, why would you live in a house that is literally watching you?
It's all about exposure. There's no privacy. And for Eden, that exposure makes the gaslighting even more effective. When she returns from that run, it's not just that the locks are changed, it's the thoroughness of the replacement.
Right.
The woman inside, let's call her the imposter, has proof that she is the real Eden Fox.
And this is where the police get involved, specifically Sergeant Luke Carter. Now, in the notes, he's described as looking like a child police officer.
Which is such a specific vibe. You know you're getting older when the authority figures start looking like teenagers.
Exactly. But this child officer doesn't believe Eden. He sides with the husband, Harrison, and the imposter. And this was so frustrating to read. Why does he side with them so quickly?
Well, it's the nature of evidence in the modern world, right? The imposter inside the house has the digital footprint. She has the Instagram photos, the local gallery owner vouching for her.
So in a world where your digital life equals your identity, the narrator, Eden, has nothing. She's analog in a digital trap.
Precisely.
But there was that one detail she clings to, the keychain.
The love you to the moon and back keychain.
Yes. Eden claims Harrison gave it to her. She's holding it in her hand while he's standing right there telling the police she's a complete stranger. It's the only physical anchor she has left.
And Harrison just uses that reality against her. This is gaslighting on an industrial scale. He isn't just denying an argument, he's denying her entire history. And when Sergeant Carter threatens to arrest her for harassment...
She snaps. I mean, she really snaps.
Yeah, she does.
She steals the police car.
Which, for a woman who is just out for a jog to clear her head, is a massive escalation.
She steals the cruiser, throws the keys into the harbor, and runs for it. And at this point in the deep dive, you're probably thinking, okay, we're going to follow Eden on the run. But the source material is something really jarring here.
It pivots hard. We just leave Eden in her panic and drop into a completely different perspective. We meet Birdie.
I have to say, I love Birdie. She is the complete opposite of Eden. She's cynical, she's got tattoos, she swears like a sailor, and she absolutely hates technology.
But she's also living under this massive shadow, and this is critical to understanding her motivation. 6 months prior to the events at Spyglass, Birdie, whose real name is Olivia Bird, receives a terminal diagnosis.
Brain tumors.
Yeah. She's told she has months to live.
Most people would probably travel or spend time with family. Birdie. She takes a promotion. She becomes the new detective chief inspector, the DCI, for Hope Falls.
It's a power move. She decides to spend her final months solving crimes in the place she was born. But it gets more entangled. Birdie didn't just pick this village at random. She actually inherited Spyglass.
The same house Eden was living in.
The very same house. From her grandmother.
Okay, we have to pause on the grandmother, because the sources mention her as the woman who died twice, and I need you to explain that.
It's a fantastic piece of local folklore that really sets the tone for the village. Her grandmother was buried alive in the 1940s.
Nightmare for you.
Absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
But it gets wilder. Grave robbers dug her up that same night to steal a ring off her finger. They couldn't get it off, so they tried to cut her finger.
Oh, no.
The pain woke her up. She climbed out of the grave, walked back home, and slept in her own bed.
That is horrifying. But also, that woman is tough as nails.
And that's the lineage Birdie comes from. In Hope Falls, death isn't always permanent. So Birdie shows up to be the boss of Sergeant Carter. And talk about awkward workplace dynamics.
Oh, this was great.
Turns out, 6 months ago, Birdie visited the house to check out her inheritance, met Carter, and they had a one-night stand.
So now he's terrified of her because she's his boss, she's smarter than him, and she totally ghosted him.
Exactly. And she has this giant white wolf dog named Sunday who goes everywhere with her.
Sunday's the best character.
He really is. But beneath that tough exterior and the dog, Birdie is hiding something huge. She's taking heavy medication, she's having these episodes of blinding pain, but she is hiding her terminal illness from everyone. She's trying to project strength while literally dying inside.
So we have Eden, who has been erased. We have Birdie, who is dying but fighting. And linking them together is the husband, Harrison Wolfe.
Harrison is complicated. He is the CEO of a company called Thanos.
Subtle, named after the Greek personification of death.
Or, maybe the comic book villain who snaps his fingers to end lives. Both seem to fit. Harrison's company isn't just a tech startup. It claims it can predict the exact date of your death using DNA and AI.
Which sounds like typical Silicon Valley vaporware, but in the book, it seems to actually work.
It does. And for Harrison, this isn't just a business, it's a pathology. He is obsessed with time. The text reveals he hated his mother and had a tragic relationship with his daughter, Gabriella. He wants to solve death by removing the uncertainty.
Let's talk about the daughter, Gabriella, because this backstory is heartbreaking and so spooky. 10 years ago, she was hit by a police car. She survived, but she hasn't spoken a single word since.
She lives in this high-end care facility called The Manor. And here is the eerie part. Gabriella spends her days painting. And what does she paint?
Spyglass.
Spyglass, the house on the cliff.
But the sources say she's never seen it.
Precisely. She's painting a house she's never visited. It suggests this deep, almost psychic connection to the location or the trauma associated with it.
So we have Harrison running this death prediction company. And here is where the threads start to pull together in a really disturbing way. Harrison knows Birdie.
He does. Birdie applied to Thanos to find out her death date. Harrison personally monitored her case. He knows she is dying. He watched her on the security cameras when she came to his clinic.
That is so creepy.
It recontextualizes every single interaction they have. When Birdie shows up at his house as the police detective investigating his missing wife, he isn't just seeing a cop, he's seeing a walking expiration date.
He thinks he has the upper hand because he knows how her story ends.
Exactly. He thinks he's playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Okay, so let's get to the convergence. We have Eden, who has disappeared after escaping the police. She got a text from Harrison telling her to meet him at the cliffs, a notorious suicide spot.
And then a body washes up on the beach at Blackwater Bay.
And it is not pretty. The description is gruesome face smashed in, unidentifiable.
This triggers the murder investigation. Birdie and Carter are on the scene, and we meet the person who found the body, Diana Harris, the gallery owner.
We have to mention her quirk. I know we have a lot to cover, but the tea thing.
It's unforgettable. Diana Harris keeps her dead husband's ashes and puts a teaspoon of them in her tea every day.
She drinks her husband.
She consumes her grief literally. It's grotesque, but it reinforces this theme running through the whole story. An obsession with holding on to people, keeping them with you past the point of death.
Meanwhile, poor Carter throws up at the crime scene. But he saw something important, right?
He did. He saw a man running away from the beach. He suspects it was Harrison.
And what is Harrison doing? He's not grieving. He's gone full villain mode. He's back at Spyglass, crawling through secret tunnels behind the bookcases.
Tunnels that he illegally altered, by the way. He's burning his clothes, washing away mud and blood. He believes the body on the beach is Eden because he planted a phone on her to track her.
He planted a phone on his wife to track her to a cliff.
To ensure he knew where she was. He thinks the problem is solved. And then we get this incredible interrogation scene. Birdie sits Harrison down at his own kitchen table.
And she's a human lie detector. She knows he's lying.
But he knows she's dying. It's this high-stakes game of chicken. He's thinking, I don't have to beat you. I just have to outlive you.
But the real bombshell drops when Birdie goes to visit the daughter, Gabriella, at the manor.
This is the moment that upends the whole narrative. You have this girl who hasn't spoken in a decade. Birdie walks in, Gabriella looks at her, and for the first time in 10 years, she speaks.
And what she says gave me chills. She looks at Birdie and says, "She is not my mother."
It just throws everything into question. She is not my mother. Is she talking about the woman claiming to be Eden? Is she talking about the memory of her mother? Or, and this is the kicker, is she talking about the woman standing in front of her?
This leads us to the big unraveling. Because you listening might be feeling a bit confused about the timeline here, and honestly, so was I at first.
That confusion is intentional in the source material. We have to look at the clues we've gathered. We have Birdie, who is DCI Olivia Bird, but the police found something in her car during the investigation.
They found a keychain, the Love You to the Moon and Back keychain.
The exact same keychain Eden said Harrison gave to her in the first chapter.
So wait, Eden had it, now Birdie has it. And Birdie fits the description of the imposter. Younger, tattoos, tough.
But Birdie also fits the description of the victim in some ways.
So are we seeing two different timelines playing out at once?
That is the leading theory when you analyze the text. We have the Eden narrative, which feels immediate and visceral, and we have the Birdie narrative. The question is Eden a fabrication? Is Eden actually a younger version of Birdie, or is Birdie the one who has taken over Eden's life?
It's the My Husband's Wife title, right? It implies a replacement.
Or a duality. Look at the names. Eden Fox, Olivia Bird.
Fox and Bird.
Predator and prey. Or just two wild creatures. And if Birdie has the keychain, it suggests a crossover of identity.
Harrison is the common denominator. He is manipulating these women like variables in his Thanos experiment. He's trying to save time, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't save his daughter from her disability, so he tries to control the death dates of others.
Well, Birdie is doing the opposite. She knows her date. Thanos sent her a letter saying she dies on February 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Which is incredibly dark irony. The day of love is her day of death. And instead of cowering, she goes to Hope Falls to solve a mystery. She is trying to live her life while Harrison is trying to schedule death.
There's this moment where Eden, the narrator, Eden, is falling off the cliff. She thinks true love kills.
That is a haunting line. It suggests that her proximity to Harrison, her love for him, is the weapon.
So where does this leave us? We have a body with no face on the beach. We have Harrison burning clothes in a secret tunnel. We have a detective sleeping with her sergeant, hiding a terminal illness, and a mute daughter who just broke her silence to disown someone.
It leaves us with a profound mess of identity. The source material forces you to question who is actually telling the truth. Is the Eden we listened to in the beginning even real?
It really makes you think about how much of our identity is tied to other people recognizing us. If your husband looks at you and says, "I don't know you," how long until you start to doubt yourself?
That's the gaslighting element. It's effective because it attacks the very foundation of self. But I want to put back to the Thanos aspect for a second. This tech company.
Yeah, the letter Birdie gets is so corporate and cheerful about her death. "We wish you a happy death day."
It's dystopian, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Harrison frames it as a kindness. He thinks knowing the end date allows you to stop wasting time.
It's the ultimate productivity hack. Deadline. Death.
But look at the result. Does it make Harrison happy? No. He's paranoid, he's secretive, he's building tunnels behind bookcases. The certainty didn't bring him peace, it brought him a need for absolute control.
And Birdie?
Birdie is interesting. Knowing her date made her reckless, maybe, but also incredibly focused. She quit her job, sold her stuff, moved to the place she was born. In a way, she is the only one actually living, even though she's the one who is dying.
That is a great point. She's shedding the baggage, while Harrison is building tunnels to hide his.
Exactly. Harrison wants to play God, but Birdie is just trying to be human for a few more weeks.
So we have to wrap this up, even though I feel like we could talk about Sunday the dog for another hour.
He is a very good boy, the one reliable male character in the whole book.
Truly. But looking at the whole picture of my husband's wife, what is the takeaway here?
The takeaway is that certainty is a trap. Harrison wants certainty about death. Eden thought she had certainty about her marriage. Carger thought he had certainty about his quiet little village.
And they were all wrong.
Catastrophically wrong. The only truth in Hope Falls seems to be that everyone lies and everyone dies. It's just a matter of when.
Cheerful.
I try.
But it raises a massive question for you listening right now, and I want you to really think about this. If Harrison's company, Thanos, actually existed, if you received an envelope in the mail that contained the exact date you back out, do you open it?
It's the ultimate gamble. If you open it and it says next Tuesday, you panic. If it says 50 years, do you get lazy? Do you stop trying because you think you have forever?
Or do you become like Birdie? Do you take that date, look it in the eye, and decide to go catch a killer before the clock runs out?
Personally, I think mystery is what makes life livable. Knowing the ending spoils the book.
I'm with you. I'd leave that envelope sealed. Because if this deep dive has taught us anything, it's that in Hope Falls, trying to control the future is the quickest way to ruin the present.
And sometimes the key to the wrong house is just the beginning of finding out who you really are.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through My Husband's Wife. Embrace the uncertainty, hold on to your keys, and maybe double check who is standing in your kitchen. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Imagine for a second that death isn't a wall. It's not a white light, it's not some pearly gate, and it's definitely not just fading to black. Imagine instead that death is a mode of transport,
Okay.
specifically a train. And when you board this train, you aren't going to a destination on a map. You're embarking on a tour of your own life.
It's a compelling premise. It takes this huge abstract fear of the end and turns it into something oddly, I don't know, bureaucratic, but also deeply personal.
Right.
The idea that we don't just leave our lives behind, but we actually have to confront them, view them from the outside before we can truly move on.
It sounds a bit like therapy, just,
right.
Postmortem.
Yeah.
And that is the central hook of the source material we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into excerpts from The Midnight Train by Matt Haig.
And, usually ghost stories are about haunting other people.
Right.
This feels different. It feels like a case study on haunting yourself.
That's a great way to put it. It's less of a ghost story and more of a psychological audit.
Exactly. It takes the concept of the life review, which is pretty common in near-death experiences, and it mechanizes it, turns it into a literal journey on a steam engine.
So our mission today is to unpack the life of the protagonist, Wilbur Budd, and analyze the peculiar rules of this specific afterlife.
To understand why looking back is apparently so essential to moving forward.
So let's meet Wilbur. And this is interesting because the text introduces us to him at two very different points in his existence, almost at the same time.
Right.
We get the Wilbur at the end of his life, lonely, 81, living in Sheffield. And then we get the Wilbur of his memories.
Specifically, Wilbur at 29.
The peak.
Or at least what he thinks is the peak.
Which is a whole concept I want to dig into later, this idea of a peak age. But let's start where the text starts. Venice, 1974.
The honeymoon with Maggie.
The description here is so vivid. Heat, the wine, the architecture. But beyond just the travelogue stuff, what's the author really doing here? Why start a story about death with a honeymoon?
Well, it's about establishing the baseline of loss. You can't understand the tragedy of Wilbur's later life unless you see the absolute height of his happiness. Haig calls it a Byzantine fever dream. It's pure sensory overload, the Doge's palace, the April. But I think you have to pay attention to the psychology.
Okay.
Wilbur notes that life, for him, is usually tough as Sheffield steel. He's conditioned to struggle. So when he finds this moment of pure ease, his instinct isn't just to enjoy it, it's to possess it.
Right. Maggie says something like, let's ignore time, let's be Venice.
Exactly. Let's be Venice. It's that totally universal desire to freeze time, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
A perfect dinner, a vacation where you just think, if I could stop the clock right now.
Yes.
But the source material suggests that desire is actually a trap because time doesn't stop. And the more you try to freeze a moment, the more painful it is when it inevitably passes.
And even in this perfect moment, there's a crack, a glitch in the matrix. They're walking to the Rialto Bridge, a little tipsy, on top of the world, and Wilbur sees someone.
He sees a doppelganger.
Yeah.
A man who looks exactly like him, same flare jeans, same green shirt, but older and sadder.
Just watching him.
And it's not just visual. He hears something.
Yeah.
A rhythmical chugging and a faint whistle, like a train leaving a station in the middle of Venice.
Which is impossible.
Right. So usually in fiction, a doppelganger is a bad omen. Is that what's happening here?
It is, but in a very specific way. Because we have the benefit of the full text, we know that the ghost on the bridge, it isn't a hallucination.
So what is it?
That is the deceased Wilbur. The Wilbur on the midnight train coming back to visit his younger self.
Wow.
It's a loop. The happy Wilbur of 1974 is being watched by his own ghost from 52 years in the future.
That is actually terrifying if you think about it.
Yeah.
It implies that in our happiest moments, our future regret is already there watching us.
Or our future understanding. Maybe the ghost isn't just haunting him, he's mourning him. Mourning the boy who has no idea what's coming. It sets up this central theme then, the non-linear nature of memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That we are always living with our past and future selves at the same time.
And the transition from that golden memory to his reality is just, it's brutal. We jump from the honeymoon to the end of the line.
Back to Sheffield. Wilbur is 81. He's alone.
Yeah.
Divorced for decades.
It's a study in contrast. That sensory overload of Venice is replaced by just the silence of an empty house.
And he's taking piano lessons, trying to learn bridge over troubled water.
The song Maggie was singing in Venice.
Yeah. He's trying to use music to thread his way back to that moment.
But the past comes crashing in through a phone call. And this scene was tough to get through. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so awkward.
The wrong number.
Maggie calls him by accident. She thinks she's dialing a pizza place, and suddenly they're on the phone.
This is where the text really digs into the cruelty of time. It's not just that they're old. It's the estrangement.
Yes.
Maggie calls him Wilbur, not Old Bean or Love, just Wilbur. It's formal.
That stood out to me too. Wilbur thinks about how the passing of time brings its own formality.
It's strange, isn't it?
How you can know someone so intimately share a life, a bed, a honeymoon, and then decades later you're just strangers politely discussing a wrong number.
It's the erosion of identity. To her, he's no longer the husband. He's just a voice from a discarded chapter of her life.
She even says she dreamed of him but then shuts it down.
Right. I don't ever remember dreams. She refuses to engage with the memory because it's too painful, or maybe just irrelevant now.
And Wilbur is left just holding the receiver, realizing he has become a footnote in his own love story.
And that realization seems to be the final straw. He dies shortly after.
But it's not a big movie death.
No.
He's looking for an old letter from Maggie in the attic, trying to find proof that they were happy once, and his heart just stops 1 minute after midnight.
And this is where the world building shifts. No white light. He wakes up in a place that looks like a Sheffield train station, but it's desolate, suspended in the cosmos.
And he's not 81 anymore.
Right. This is a fascinating mechanic. The text says he felt the procedural memory of the soul.
So he inhabits his body at age 29.
The text calls it his true self, or the age he was closest to himself.
I stopped to think about that. Why 29? Why not, 21 or 40?
Well, think about Wilbur's timeline. 29 was Venice. It was before the divorce, before the bitterness, before the hardening of life set in.
Yeah.
It suggests that our soul's age, the moment we were most open to the world. And for Wilbur, that was 1974. So he gets his flared jeans and his sideburns back.
He boards a train, the Duke of Gloucester, a steam engine from his childhood, and he meets his guide, Agnes Bagdale.
And I love that his guide isn't an angel or some religious figure. She's a bookstore owner he knew as a kid.
Why her?
Because of her philosophy. In life, Agnes believed that books are mirrors for the soul. She had this knack for pairing people with the exact book they needed.
Okay.
So in the afterlife, she's essentially the editor of Wilbur's life story.
Yeah.
She explains that the train is a procedure to help him apprehend his life.
Apprehend, that's a very specific word. Not judge, not punish.
Precisely. Apprehend, like understanding a complex text. Agnes tells him that life is a story, but you can't understand the plot while you're busy living it line by line.
You have to step out of the narrative.
The train allows him to do that. It takes him to specific chapters, stops along the line, so he can see the context he missed.
So the first stop is his childhood, 1950s Sheffield.
And this is not the golden nostalgia of Venice.
Yeah.
This is gritty. Bomb sites, rubble, smog.
Yeah, you can almost feel it.
And it's crucial that we talk about the environment here because it contextualizes everything that follows. Wilbur steps off the train as a ghost.
And Agnes warns him.
Strictly, don't meddle. You are here to witness. And he sees his childhood home, not through the hazy lens of a kid, but with the sharp eyes of an adult.
And he sees his brother, Dougie. Now, up to this point, Wilbur has described Dougie as a a rough character.
Someone he maybe feared or looked down on.
Right. The narrative Wilbur has told himself for 80 years is, I was the sensitive one. Dougie was the thug.
But watching from the platform, he sees a scene play out. A bully named Bobby Thomas attacks Dougie.
And Wilbur realizes Dougie isn't fighting for fun.
No, he's fighting to stop Bobby from getting to Wilbur.
It flips the script completely. The violence wasn't aggression, it was protection.
It's a classic case of reframing your narrative identity. Psychologists talk about this, how our childhood memories are often frozen in a child's limited understanding. A child sees a shouting brother and thinks scary. An adult sees a shouting brother defending his kin and thinks loyal. The deep dive here is that the afterlife forces Wilbur to apply adult empathy to a child's trauma.
He has to realize that violence, in Dougie's case, was a love language.
In a way, yes.
He sees his mother, Edith, too. And this is where the class element really hit me hard.
The landlord.
She's dealing with this landlord, Mr. Parkin, who's demanding rent. And it's so humiliating.
It is. Mr. Parkin is lecturing her about morality in Noah's Ark while she's just standing there in a dress she made herself, exhausted, holding a baby.
Wilbur realizes for the first time that his mother wasn't just mum. She was a woman drowning in poverty, fighting to keep a roof over their heads.
And this connects directly to the next stop, doesn't it?
It does.
Because we see young Wilbur, the boy, finding an escape from all that poverty. He finds Bagdale's bookshop.
The sanctuary. But there's tension even there. Agnes is this welcoming spirit, but her son, Arthur Bagdale, wants to kick Wilbur out.
This is a business, not a public library. Even in his sanctuary, the economic reality is intruding. You have to pay to play.
But Wilbur finds a defender in Agnes. And more importantly, he meets Maggie.
The meet cute.
It's a quintessential scene. You have Wilbur reading The Old Man and the Sea on the curb, and two girls approach. Doreen, who mocks him.
She calls him a cheeky Wazaki.
I am definitely bringing that back. But Maggie doesn't mock him.
No. She defends him. She sees the book. This immediately establishes Maggie as his intellectual equal, his safe harbor.
And there's a detail here that links back to the poverty and the war.
They bond because both of their fathers died in the war.
It's a trauma bond.
Exactly. They're two damaged kids in a rough city finding solace in books. And Wilbur tells her,
I'd like to be a writer.
and we know from the intro that he doesn't become a writer. He becomes a businessman, British Business Person of the Year or something. And this is where we have to connect the dots. Why did he give up that dream? The text doesn't spell it out here, but look at what he just witnessed with his mother and the landlord.
The humiliation.
The humiliation of poverty. The struggle. It's very likely that Wilbur the adult chose business safety, money, control, precisely because he was terrified of being helpless like his mother.
So the unlived life of the writer wasn't just laziness or lack of talent, it was fear.
A fear born from that moment on the doorstep with the landlord. That's the tragedy. He built this fortress of financial success to protect himself, but in doing so, he locked out the part of himself that connected with Maggie.
The writer, the dreamer.
Yeah.
Which brings us to, I think, the emotional climax of this whole journey. The encounter with the self. The train stops again at the childhood home. But this time, Ghost Wilbur, our 29-year-old observer, walks in and finds himself alone with baby Wilbur.
This scene is pure magic realism. Agnes said, "Don't meddle." But he can't help it. The baby is crying. And Wilbur, the ghost, tries to soothe him. He whispers, "I'm the ghost of you."
And then he sees the toy train on the floor.
The Duke of Gloucester.
Yeah.
The miniature version of the very train he is riding in the afterlife. This object, it's the key to the whole story.
Because we find out where it came from. Wilbur always loved that train. It was his most prized possession, but he never knew how he got it.
He watches Dougie come in. Dougie with shoes hanging off his feet looking rough. And Dougie produces this expensive toy from Red Gates, the big toy shop in Sheffield.
And he admits to their mom that he stole it.
He risked prison. He says Hitler got their dad out the clouds, so he wanted Wilbur to have something good. He risked arrest, the reformatory, just to give his baby brother a moment of joy.
And Ghost Wilbur is standing there watching this happen. He spent 81 years thinking his brother was just a bad apple.
And suddenly, he sees that the defining object of his childhood, this symbol of joy, was an act of sacrificial love.
It changes everything. It reframes his entire history.
And this is why the don't meddle rule is so important. If Wilbur had intervened, If he tried to change the past, he never would have learned the truth. He had to witness the reality of his brother's love.
It's such a heavy realization to know that you were loved more than you ever realized by people you judged.
That is the core philosophy of this deep dive. Agnes Bagdale's lesson isn't about fixing the past. It's about understanding it. We are all unreliable narrators of our own lives.
You have tunnel vision.
We do. We only see our own pain, our own struggle. We miss the context of the people around us. The mother hiding her exhaustion, the brother hiding his protection behind aggression, the wife hiding her loneliness behind silence.
So the afterlife in this story is basically just getting the context.
It's achieving a God's eye view of your own narrative. The text uses a Dickens quote. No space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunity missed. But the midnight train offers a loophole. You can't change the missed opportunity, but you can understand why you missed it. And maybe, for Wilbur, knowing that he was truly loved by his broken family is enough to let him move on to whatever comes next.
It's a beautiful somewhat haunting idea that we are all walking around with half the story and we won't get the rest until the end.
It creates a sense of humility, doesn't it? It makes you wonder what you're missing right now. Who is protecting you in ways you don't see? Who are you misjudging?
Well, that leads me to the question I want to leave our listeners with today. And I want you to really sit with this. We've talked about Wilbur's journey, but what about yours?
If the train pulled up for you tonight.
If you found that ticket in your pocket, departure time 00.01. And Agnes Bagdale told you that you could visit one scene from your past, not to change it, you can't, but just to see what really happened.
To see the room after you walked out of it. To hear the conversation you weren't supposed to hear.
Which moment would you choose?
And the harder question. Would you be brave enough to see the truth? Because as Wilbur learned, the truth might rewrite your entire life story.
Something to think about next time you hear a train whistle in the distance. Thanks for riding with us on this deep dive.
See you on the next journey.
I was just thinking about how we measure a life these days. It's usually, digital footprints, right?
Photos in the cloud, LinkedIn updates.
Exactly. But imagine if your life was measured just in ink and postage stamps. We are looking at a stack of documents today that is basically a paper trail of a human soul. We've got letters, emails, postcards, notes, all spanning from about 2012 to 2017.
And at the center of it all is this one woman, Sybil Van Antwerp.
Yes.
And it's a massive archive. What's so compelling, I think, is that this isn't the correspondence of some, famous politician.
Right.
Sybil is a woman in her 70s living in Arnold, Maryland. You'd drive past her house and just see a retiree living by the river.
You'd never know.
You'd never know. But when you actually read these letters, you realize you're watching this private war she's waging against aging, against grief, and honestly against the world itself.
Oh, she is definitely fighting the world.
Yeah.
And not quietly. Sybil is just this incredibly complex character. She's intelligent. She's so opinionated. She explicitly hates poetry, thinks it's pretentious.
But loves prose.
Loves prose. And she treats email like it's a contagious disease. She calls it prattle.
She does.
But here's the thing that makes reading this so tense. She's going blind.
That is the ticking clock in all of this. She has a degenerative condition. In the early letters from around 2012, she describes seeing gnats in her vision.
Right.
By 2015, she's writing about her fear of what she calls the black chasm. But what's fascinating, and maybe a little frustrating, is how she deals with it.
She doesn't.
She doesn't. She refuses to learn Braille. She refuses to tell her adult children, Bruce and Fiona. She is just determined to keep her independence and her correspondence until the lights literally go out.
Which seems, stubborn doesn't quite cover it. It's almost self-destructive.
It absolutely is. It's about control.
Yeah.
As long as she can write, she feels like she's in control.
So let's look at who she's writing to, because this is where we get two completely different Sybils. You've got the curmudgeon, and then you have this deeply vulnerable woman writing to strangers.
The curmudgeon side is genuinely funny in this sharp, kind of painful way. If you are an institution or just someone Small thinks is incompetent, she will let you have it.
Oh yeah, like that ongoing feud with the dean of the English College at the University of Maryland, Melissa Jeanette.
Yes.
I read through that whole chain. It goes on for 5 years?
5 years. All because Sybil wants to audit a literature course. She's done it before, but the new dean, Melissa, says no. Policy change.
And most people would just move on.
Right. But Sybil turns it into a crusade. She calls it a knockdown, drag-out fight. And even in 2016, after being told to stop, she writes that she will not let the matter rest.
It's not just the university, though. There's that letter to the editor of the Baltimore Sun.
Oh, that one's intense.
It is. She reads this story about a father who accidentally backed over his own child, a horrific tragedy. And Sybil isn't mad at the father. She is furious that the paper printed it.
Her language is visceral.
She writes, "I spite upon the unfeeling soul who wrote it." She accuses them of making shark bait of someone's life.
And you can see if you look closer, that anger isn't just about the newspaper. It hints at her own trauma, which we'll get to. She's protective of that father's grief because she knows what it feels like.
But that aggression, it does attract some blowback. We have to talk about DM.
Yeah. This part of the archive it's chilling.
She has a stalker.
It seems so. She receives these anonymous notes from someone signing as DM. This person calls her a cold metal bitch.
Wow.
They describe her as a tank driving through and crushing without mercy. It all references her old legal career. She was a clerk for a judge named Guy Donnelly.
And they were known as Butch and Sundance.
Exactly. A team that took no prisoners. And DM just hates her for it. There's one note where they claim to have driven to her house, spat on the judge's grave, and plans to spit on hers.
That is genuinely threatening.
It is. But Sybil's reaction is what's so interesting. She barely flinches. She mentions locking the doors, but she doesn't go to the police. It's like she just accepts that being disliked is the price she pays. She wears cold metal bitch like armor.
But then you flip the page in the source material and you see her letters to authors. And that armor it dissolves.
It really does.
She writes to Joan Didion, to Kazuo Ishiguro, to Ann Patchett, and she isn't lecturing them. She's asking for help.
That's the thing. She can't ask the people in her real life, so she asks people who live in books. She asks Joan Didion about grief. She asks Ishiguro about the ethics of cloning.
That Joan Didion letter is it's heartbreaking. She tells her that grief is like swallowing a hot air balloon but trying not to let on.
What an image.
It's such a vivid picture of suppressed pain. It feels like she's trying to outsource her therapy to these writers.
And that grief is really the anchor of her entire life. We can't understand Sybil without looking at the ghosts of the past.
Right, specifically Dan and Gilbert.
Dan at Antwerp is her ex-husband. He's Belgian. And as these letters are being written, he's dying of cancer back in Europe.
And he writes her this incredible letter.
One of the most profound letters in the whole collection. He admits he wasn't a fighting man, that he was ready to surrender. But the core of it is an apology. He apologizes for blaming Sybil for the death of their son, Gilbert.
And this is the tragedy that broke their marriage.
Yes. Gilbert died when he was 8, a drowning accident at Lake Saint-Pierre. And Sybil describes the memory of that day as a locked room she can't enter.
She says there's a sentry standing guard outside it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when Dan brings it up, it forces her to confront it. He writes that he remembers leaving her on the floor, weeping, and he just couldn't touch her. He just walked away.
Devastating. But this is where I really struggle with Sybil. Dan is dying. He reaches out with this incredible vulnerability, and Sybil she doesn't go to him.
No.
She tries to write back. We see the drafts, but she can't do it. She doesn't even go to his funeral in Belgium.
It's a kind of paralysis. That locked room is just too terrifying for her to open.
But the fallout is massive. Her daughter, Fiona, who lives in London, she is furious. There are emails in here where Fiona basically accuses Sybil of hiding in her house, writing letters to strangers.
To the very people we're reading about.
Right, while ignoring the family that actually needs her. And you know what? Fiona has a point.
She absolutely has a point. It's the central paradox of Sybil. She can be so intimate on paper with someone she's never met, but she can't show up in person for her own daughter.
Paper just listens.
Exactly. Real people are messy. They demand things. Paper is controllable.
Until real life sort of forces its way in. Because while she's ignoring her family in Europe, she starts getting involved with someone right next door. Well, not exactly next door, but enter Harry Landy.
This is such a pivotal relationship. Harry is the teenage son of her old colleague, Judge James Landy. He's math savant, but he's socially very awkward.
Call him the Screamer.
Yeah, the other kids call him the Screamer, and he's being bullied pretty severely.
And what I love about this is that Sybil usually has zero patience for teenagers. But Harry writes to her in these lists.
Yes.
Just lists detailing his life, building a model of the Lusitania, his mother's stays in mental hospitals, and Sybil treats him with this incredible dignity.
She sees a kindred spirit, I think, someone else who doesn't quite fit. She tells him, F the haters, though she refuses to actually write out the word.
Of course she does.
But the letters go from, cute to critical very fast. In 2014, Harry runs away. He walks all the way from D.C. to her house in Arnold.
And she takes him in, feeds him chili, hides him from his dad for a night. But it gets darker. In 2016, Harry attempts suicide.
And this is the moment where Sybil has to choose. She failed to save her son Gilbert. She failed to show up for Dan. But when Harry is in crisis, she steps up.
Big time.
She takes him in during his recovery. And this is a woman who claims she has no feelings for animals, yet she's tolerating Harry's shedding golden retriever Thor. She's vacuuming twice a day for this kid.
But there's a moment here that I think just proves how much she's changed. The letter to George Lucas.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
The Star Wars creator.
And to understand why this is a big deal, you have to remember, Sybil hates science fiction. She thinks it's nonsense.
Space prattle.
Space prattle. She's never even seen Star Wars. But Harry is writing this huge sci-fi story to escape his own pain. So what does she do? She writes a formal letter to George Lucas asking him to encourage Harry.
It's such a humble letter for her. She says, I'm chucking this message in a bottle into the Pacific. She just puts aside her own snobbery, her own preferences, to give this boy a boost.
That is love. It's complicated, messy love, but it's real. And it works. Harry moves in for months. They play mahjong, they play Ticket to Ride. She chooses caring for Harry over a romantic trip to Texas.
She becomes the mother to him that she couldn't be to Fiona. It connects back to her need to be useful. Harry's a problem she can help solve. Fiona's grief, the lion's death, those are unsolvable. But a bullied kid who needs a quiet place to write, that she can fix.
Now, I don't want to paint her as a total saint here.
Yeah.
Because while she is saving Harry, her own personal life is still a disaster.
It is messy.
So messy. She's drinking rum in the afternoons, and her romantic life is, well, let's talk about the men, because the contrast is wild.
It really is a comedy of errors. First, there's Mick Watts.
Tixon.
Mick is a lawyer she meets at Judge Donnelly's funeral. He is persistent, and he's the opposite of Sybil. He eats terribly, doesn't read fiction. She literally calls him boredom in her notes.
But she keeps replying to him. She admits he's funny, but the relationship that actually seems to ground her is with Theodore Lubeck,
the German neighbor. And talk about a bad start to a relationship.
Oh my God.
It begins with Sybil killing his cat.
You cannot make this up. She's driving home, she's blinded by the sun again, the eyesight issue, and she runs over Theodore's cat, a slate gray cat with white paws.
It's horrific. But the way she writes about it is so darkly funny. She has to go into his house to get a towel to wrap the dead cat in. And even in the middle of all this trauma, she's critiquing his horrible mauve towels.
That is peak Sybil. I may have killed your pet, but your interior design is the real crime here.
But Theodore, he's a saint. He forgives her. And later, that relationship shifts from just forgiveness to genuine care.
Right, when Sybil falls, she's walking by the river at dawn. He startles her and she falls and breaks her wrist.
And she's just lying there, helpless, unable to see clearly.
It's her nightmare scenario, losing her independence.
Exactly. And Theodore finds her, he helps her up, he drives her to the ER. And from that point on, they bond. They start playing gin rummy. They go to a German bakery in Baltimore called Oma's.
It's a quiet intimacy. Unlike Mick, who wants to take her shooting in Texas, Theodore just meets her where she is. He brings her Buckeyes, those little chocolate peanut butter things.
He understands her. As we learn in the letters, he's dealt with loss too. His wife had dementia. He knows what it's like to lose someone by degrees, which is what Sybil is doing with her sight.
So you have Harry, who brings out her maternal side. You have Theodore, who accepts her vulnerability. These relationships are softening her. But there's one more thread. And it's the one that feels the most modern, the DNA test.
The Kindred Project. Her son Bruce gives her a DNA kit for Christmas. Now remember, Sybil is an adoptee. She knows she's part Native American, part British, part Russian, but she has never wanted to find her birth family. She calls that search a ridiculous system of torture.
But she takes the test, and while she's waiting, she strikes up this bizarre email friendship with a customer service rep named Bassem.
Bassem is such a great character. He's a Syrian refugee in California working for this DNA company. And Sybil, being Sybil, can't just ask about her results. She starts editing his resume. She's trying to help him get an engineering job.
It's so ironic. She's going blind, drinking too much, estranged from her daughter, but she's fixing the grammar of a stranger to help him get a job.
It's that control thing again. If she can fix Bassem's resume, maybe she doesn't have to think about her dying ex-husband.
But then it all blows up. Bassem gets fired for helping her too much. And in the fallout, Sybil makes a mistake. She's drunk on rum, she's just read Dan's final letter, and she accidentally checks a box on the website.
The box that allows DNA matching.
And she gets a match. immediately.
A huge one, a 49% match.
Okay, for anyone who hasn't done one of these tests, you have to understand 49% is massive.
It is not a cousin.
No, that is a parent, a child, or a full sibling.
Exactly. It turns out to be a woman named Henrietta Gleeson in Scotland.
And Sybil panics. She tries to delete it, but she writes in her journal, "The thing that has been woken cannot be lulled back to sleep."
And this leads to the climax of the archive. It's January 2017. Sybil sits down and she writes to Henrietta. She acknowledges how strange it is. She lays out her history and she reaches out.
It's the ultimate act of opening up. I mean, think about where she started. Fighting with the dean, hiding her blindness, refusing to see her family, and now she's initiating contact with a stranger who shares half her DNA.
And look at the timing. This happens after Harry has been staying with her, after she's let Theodore into her life. She had to learn how to connect with people right there in her orbit before she could take that leap across the ocean.
It's almost like she had to practice being human again.
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah.
She practiced on Harry, she practiced on Theodore, and finally, she was ready for the real thing.
So we have this stack of letters that just ends in early 2017. We don't know if Henrietta wrote back. We don't know if Sybil eventually went completely blind. The source material just stops.
But we know she changed. She went from this solitary observer, judging the world from her window, to being a participant, a mother figure to Harry, a friend to Theodore, and potentially a sister to Henrietta.
And she did it all through letters. Sybil has this philosophy that letters are immortal. She contrasts them with digital life, which she thinks is just fleeting. And looking at this archive, she kind of has a point.
She really does. The act of sitting down, thinking through a sentence, and committing it to paper, it forces a kind of honesty that we often skip over in the digital age. It slows you down. Sybil's letters allowed her to be the person she couldn't quite manage to be in real life.
She wrote herself into a better person.
She did. She wrote herself into redemption.
So here's a thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. We live in an age of instant communication. We can text, we can tweet, we can video call, but are we actually saying less? Sybil Van Antwerp measured her life in ink and stamps, and in doing so, she left a legacy that outlasted her own eyesight. If you received a letter today, a real physical letter that challenged everything you thought you knew about yourself, like Sybil's DNA match, would you have the courage to write back?
It's a question worth asking.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time. Okay, I want to start with a ghost story. Well, not exactly a ghost story, but a story about a kind of ghost in the financial machine.
Ooh, I like that.
So, picture a man named Ronald Reed. If you met him on the street, you wouldn't look twice.
Right.
He spent his whole life in rural Vermont. He was the guy sweeping floors at JCPenney, fixing cars at a gas station, lived in a tiny house, chopped his own firewood, used safety pins on his coat.
The definition of unassuming. He's the kind of person who, if you walked into a luxury car dealership, the salespeople would probably just pretend they didn't see him.
Exactly. But when Ronald died in 2014, at 92, the local papers and then the national papers, they just lost their minds.
And why was that?
Because this janitor, this humble guy, left behind a fortune of over $8 million.
Wow.
And he didn't win the lottery. He didn't inherit a gold mine. He just saved.
And that brings us to the other side of this story, the anti-Ronald, Richard Fuscone.
Right. Fuscone is everything Ronald wasn't. Harvard educated, MBA from the University of Chicago, and executive at Merrill Lynch. He was on Crane's 40 under 40 list.
So he had the pedigree, the whole package.
The whole package. This guy wasn't just rich, he was a finance rich. We're talking an 18,000 square foot mansion, 2 swimming pools, 7 garages.
He had the connections, the advanced math.
Yeah.
Everything. But when the 2008 financial crisis hit, Fuscone didn't just lose money, he was wiped out.
Totally. Went bankrupt. His mansion was foreclosed on.
And that right there is the mystery we're unpacking in this deep dive.
It really is, because think about it. In what other industry is this even possible? You never hear a story about a janitor who secretly performed, better heart surgery than a Harvard-trained cardiologist.
Or a guy who built a better skyscraper in his backyard than a team of engineers. It doesn't happen. In almost every other field, there's this rigid hierarchy. Training equals results.
But finance.
Finance is the only field where a guy like Ronald Reed can just completely outperform a guy like Richard Fuscone.
Which brings us to our source material today. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And the premise here is, It's kind of a slap in the face to the entire financial industry.
It really is. Housel argues that money isn't a hard science, like physics or engineering.
Right.
It's a soft skill.
We're all taught that finance is math, right? It's formulas, data, spreadsheets. If you just have the data, you make the right decision.
But Housel says that's basically nonsense. Doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. It's psychology, not calculus.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to strip away the jargon, the stock tips, and really look at the weird wiring in our brains that makes us so bad at this stuff.
And where should we start?
I want to start with the thing that honestly scares me the most. The role of luck.
It's the elephant in the room. We all love a good self-made story. We want to believe that outcomes are 100% based on effort.
Of course. But looking at the research on Bill Gates really shook me. I mean, look, obviously Bill Gates is a genius. He works incredibly hard. I'm not taking that away from him.
Sure.
But the sequence of events that allowed him to even try to be Bill Gates is statistically wild.
It is. You have to go back to 1968. Bill Gates is at Lakeside School in Seattle. Now, this wasn't just a good school. It was arguably the only high school in the world that had a teletype computer terminal.
In 1968, most universities didn't have this. Most tech companies didn't have this. And here's this 13-year-old kid with unlimited access to a computer.
Housel actually crunches the numbers on this. In 1968, there were roughly 303 million high school-age people in the world.
Great.
About 18 million in the U.S., about 270,000 in Washington State, a little over 100,000 in Seattle, and only about 300 went to Lakeside.
So the odds of being a student at the one school with a computer were 1 in a million?
Roughly. If Bill Gates had gone to literally any other high school, he'd still be a genius, but he wouldn't be the founder of Microsoft. He wouldn't have had those 10,000 hours of coding before he even graduated.
Okay, so that's the luck argument. But I feel like people hear that and they get defensive. They think, oh, so you're saying it's all random. Why should I even bother working hard?
And that's the wrong takeaway. The point isn't that hard work doesn't matter, it's that luck is a multiplier. But here's the darker side of that, which I think proves the point even better. The story of Kent Evans.
I had never even heard this name before.
Most people haven't. Kent Evans was Bill Gates' best friend in 8th grade. And according to Gates himself, Kent was the smartest kid in their class.
Wow.
He was just as obsessed with the computer, just as ambitious. They actually planned to go into business together.
So in an alternate timeline, Microsoft is Gates and Evans.
Very likely, yes. But Kent never graduated. He died in a mountaineering accident before high school graduation.
Which is just tragic.
Incredibly tragic. But look at the math again. The odds of a high school student dying in a mountaineering accident are roughly 1 in a million.
Oh, wow.
So you have Bill Gates, who experienced 1 in a million good luck, and you have Kent Evans, who experienced 1 in a million bad risk. They were equally smart, equally driven, but the universe flipped a coin.
And it landed on heads for one and tails for the other. That really reframes how you judge success, doesn't it?
It has to.
Because we look at a billionaire and think, they must have known something I don't. And we look at someone who went bankrupt and think, they must have been lazy or stupid.
Exactly. And the lesson here isn't to be fatalistic. It's to give yourself and others some grace. Luck and risk are siblings. When things go well, you're probably not as smart as you think you are.
And when things go badly,
You're probably not as terrible as you fear. You have to judge the process, not just the outcome.
I like that. Judge the process. Because the outcome might just be the roll of the dice. Now, speaking of things our brains are bad at, let's talk about compounding.
The force that Einstein supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world.
The source material uses this analogy about ice ages that I loved. I always thought ice ages happened because, the sun got dimmer or something. A deep freeze.
That's the intuitive assumption. Big result requires a big cause. But the reality is much more subtle.
Right. It all comes down to the Earth's tilt changing just a tiny bit. And that tilt, it doesn't make the winters colder. It just makes the summer slightly cooler, just by a few degrees.
Which seems insignificant. Who cares if summer is 68 degrees instead of 70?
But the physics of it is wild because the summer is slightly cooler, the snow from the winter, it doesn't quite melt all the way. There's a thin layer left.
Okay.
Then the next winter adds more snow. Then the next cool summer fails to melt that snow. And over thousands of years, you get a continental ice sheet covering North America.
It's the perfect metaphor for finance. It wasn't one massive event. It was a tiny remainder, compounded over a massive amount of time. And this is exactly how we have to look at Warren Buffett.
Yes. The Buffett stats are mind-blowing. We all know he's rich, but I think we attribute it to him being some kind of stock-picking wizard.
And he is a great investor, no doubt.
Yeah.
But let's look at the timeline. At the time of this research, Buffett's net worth was roughly $84.5 billion.
Okay.
Of that $84.5 billion, $81.5 billion came after his 65th birthday.
That is... Honestly, it's hard to wrap your head around that. It sounds like a typo.
It's the Ice Age effect. Buffett didn't start investing when he was 22. He started when he was 10.
10 years old.
Right. So imagine a different scenario. Imagine Buffett is a normal guy. He starts investing at 30 with, say, $25,000. He still gets his incredible returns, 22% a year, but he retires at 60 to play golf.
So he's still a genius investor, but with a normal human timeline.
Exactly. Under those conditions, his net worth today wouldn't be $84.5 billion. It would be about $11.9 million.
Wait. From $84 billion to $11 million.
Yes. That is the difference time makes. 99.9% of his wealth is just the result of that long time tail. He sat on the ice sheet longer than anyone else.
But this is where I struggle, and I think a lot of our listeners do too. Our brains are not built for this. We think linearly. We don't think exponentially.
We really don't.
Yeah.
You know, if I ask you to calculate 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 in your head, you can do it instantly.
Sure, 32.
If I ask you to calculate 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, your brain just shuts down. In finance, we're always looking for that lucky break, the crypto spike, the big freeze. But the real wealth is just the cool summer. It's the average return sustained for an above average period of time.
It's shut up and wait.
Basically, it's boring, but it works. But this brings us to a really critical distinction. There's a huge difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy.
This part really resonated with me because they seem like the same skill. If you know how to make money, shouldn't you know how to keep it?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But they actually require opposite personalities. Getting money requires risk. It requires optimism. You have to put yourself out there.
And keeping it.
Keeping money.
Yeah.
That requires paranoia.
Paranoia.
Absolute fear.
Yeah.
You have to believe that everything you've made can be taken away from you in an instant. You need a survival mindset.
The story of Jesse Livermore is the perfect cautionary tale here. I mean, this guy was a legend.
One of the greatest traders ever. In 1929, the market is crashing. Wall Street is in a panic. Livermore comes home. His wife is crying. She thinks they're ruined. And he tells her, actually, honey, this is my best trading day ever.
He'd shorted the market.
Perfectly. He made the equivalent of $3 billion in one day.
The king of Wall Street.
For a moment. But here's the problem. He was a risk taker. That's how he got the money. And he couldn't turn that switch off. He thought he was invincible.
So he kept making these massive leveraged bets.
Exactly. 4 years later, he was broke.
That's devastating.
It is. He had the getting rich skill, but he lacked the staying rich skill. Compare that to what Housel calls the barbell personality.
The barbell. This is what we should aim for.
Yes. So imagine a barbell. On one side, you have extreme optimism about the future. You believe the world will solve its problems, the economy will grow, things will get better over 20 years.
Okay, so that keeps you investing for the long term.
Right. But on the other end of the barbell, you have extreme paranoia about the short term. You are terrified of the next recession, the next pandemic, the next time you lose your job.
So you save like a pessimist, but you invest like an optimist.
That's it. You need the paranoia to survive the short term so you're still around to benefit from the long-term optimism. It's what's called a margin of safety.
Leaving room for error.
Right. If you are leveraged to the hilt like Livermore, you have no margin of safety. One bad break and you're out of the game for good.
It's like driving. You're optimistic you'll get to your destination, but you still wear a seatbelt and have a spare tire in the trunk?
Exactly. And you don't drive 120 miles per hour just because the car can go that fast. That was the Livermore mistake.
Now, I want to pivot to the social side of this, because so much of why we take these risks, why we spend money we shouldn't, is because of how we want other people to see us. The man in the car paradox.
Oh, this is a classic. Housel talks about his time working as a valet in LA. And he sees these guys rolling up in Ferraris and Porsches.
And of course, he stares. Who wouldn't? It's a Ferrari.
But here's the catch. He realized he wasn't looking at the driver. He wasn't thinking, wow, that guy is cool. He was thinking, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool.
I do this. I absolutely do this. If I see a nice car, I'm picturing myself in the driver's seat. I'm basically erasing the actual owner from the picture.
And that's the paradox. The driver bought the car to get respect and admiration. But the people seeing the car, they don't give the respect to the driver. They just use the car as a prop for their own fantasies.
Yeah.
Can't buy respect with horsepower.
It's kind of tragic when you think about it. We spend all this money to signal our status, but the signal is jammed.
It is. And this leads to my favorite definition in the entire deep dive, the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Okay, walk us through this, because in my head, those are basically synonyms.
In common language, they are, but Housel separates them. Rich is visible. It's your current income. If you see someone driving a $100,000 car, you know one thing for sure. They are $100,000 less wealthy than they were before they bought it.
Or they have $100,000 of debt.
Right. Rich is the flashy stuff. But wealth is hidden. Wealth is the income that is not spent. It's the money in the bank, the investment portfolio. It's the option to quit your job.
It's the story about Roger.
Yes, Roger drove a Porsche. He was the guy. Then one day, he pulls up in an old Honda, and it turns out the Porsche was repossessed. Roger was rich. He had the income to make the payments, but he wasn't wealthy. He had no assets.
And I think this is why it's so hard for us to learn from wealthy people. Because wealth is invisible.
That's the problem.
I can see the guy with the Rolex. I can't see the woman with the compounding 401k.
We learn by imitation, but you can't imitate what you can't see. We see people spending money and we think, oh, that's what being rich looks like. But no, that's what spending money looks like. Being wealthy looks like. Well, it looks like nothing.
It's the Rihanna example.
Oh, the lawsuit, yes.
Rihanna nearly went bankrupt and sued her financial advisor, and the advisor's defense was basically, was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money?
It's brutal, but it's true. Wealth is what you don't buy.
So we have this logical framework now. Save money, don't show off, compound over time. But we're human beings, not robots. And this is where the reasonable versus rational debate comes in.
Right.
The medical story here is just wild.
Julius Agner-Schaurig?
The man who cured syphilis with malaria.
It sounds like a horror movie plot. In the early 1900s, syphilis was fatal, terrifying, no cure. But Wagner-Jauregg noticed something weird. Patients who got high fevers from other diseases sometimes saw their syphilis go into remission.
So his solution was, I'm going to inject you with malaria.
Yep. He gave them malaria to induce a 104-degree fever. The fever cooked the syphilis bacteria and killed it. Then he treated the malaria with quinine. It was incredibly dangerous, but it saved thousands of lives. He won a Nobel Prize for it.
Okay, so how on earth does that relate to my mortgage?
It's about doing something that looks crazy on paper, but works because of how the human system functions. In finance, we're obsessed with being rational. A spreadsheet will tell you, do not pay off your mortgage if the interest rate is 3%. Invest that money in the S&P 500 because you'll make 8%.
That is the mathematically correct answer. You're technically losing money if you pay off the mortgage.
Rational, yes.
Yeah.
But is it reasonable?
I see where you're going with this, because the spreadsheet doesn't have to sleep at night.
Exactly. The spreadsheet doesn't feel stress. If having that debt hanging over your head makes you anxious, if it makes you panic, sell your stocks when the market dips. Then the rational decision is actually the dangerous one.
So paying off the mortgage is reasonable because it buys you peace of mind. And if you have peace of mind, you're more likely to stick to your long-term plan.
Bingo. The goal isn't to maximize your ROI on every single dollar. The goal is to maximize your adherence to the plan. If paying off the house helps you sleep at night and stick to your saving strategy, it's the right move. Math be damned.
I love that. It gives us permission to be human. It's like a diet. The perfect diet that you quit after 3 days is way worse than the pretty good diet you can stick with for 10 years.
Sustainability is everything. And part of sustaining an investment strategy is understanding the price you have to pay. Because nothing is free.
The fee of the market.
Think about Disneyland. You want the magic. You have to pay the price. And I don't just mean the ticket. I mean the crowds, the heat, the long lines.
Oh, the lines.
Right. Now, you have two ways to look at those lines. You can view them as a fine, a punishment. Why is this happening to me? This is wrong. If you think it's a fine, you're miserable.
But if you view it as a fee...
If you accept that the line is just the cost of admission for the ride, you handle it. You don't like it, but you don't panic. You just accept it.
And in the stock market, the line is volatility.
Correct. When your portfolio drops 20% in a year, and it will, that is not a fine. You didn't do anything wrong. That is the fee. That is the cost of admission for the long-term returns of the market. If you try to avoid the fee by timing the market, you usually end up paying double.
It's such a helpful mental shift. This hurts, but it's just the bill coming due. But man, it is hard to keep that perspective when the news is screaming at you. Why does the pessimist always sound like the smartest guy in the room?
It's a quirk of evolution. We are wired to pay more attention to threats. If I tell you, hey, there's a tiger in that bush, you pay attention immediately. If I tell you, hey, that bush has some nice berries, you might just ignore me. In finance, optimism often sounds like a sales pitch. Buy this stock, it'll go to the moon.
You sound like a scammer.
Right. But if I say, there is a structural flaw in the bond market that will collapse the global economy next Tuesday, I sound like a serious intellectual, like I'm trying to help you.
And destruction is fast, growth is slow. The source mentions the Wright brothers, they cracked the code of flight, a miracle, and for years nobody cared. The media ignored it. It was slow, grinding progress.
But if a plane crashes...
Front page news, immediately.
Exactly. Pearl Harbor moments happen instantly. Manhattan projects take years. So bad news always feels more urgent, even if the long-term trend is upward.
The book has this great thought experiment about an alien visiting Earth.
The alien perspective, I love this. Imagine an alien surveys the U.S. economy in 2007. They see the factories, the tech, the workers. Then they come back in 2009 in the depths of the Great Recession.
The end of the world, economically speaking.
But the alien looks around. The factories are still there. The technology is actually better than it was 2 years ago. The workers are just as skilled. Physically, the capacity of the country is exactly the same.
But we felt trillions of dollars poorer.
Because the story changed. We went from a story of everything is great to a story of we are doomed. The wealth vanished because the wealth was largely psychological. It reminds you that the economy isn't a machine. It's a collection of emotional people telling each other stories.
That's both terrifying and empowering, because we can change the story.
We can.
So we've covered a lot. Luck, compounding, survival, reasonable versus rational. But I want to land on the ultimate question. Why? Why do all of this? If I save my money and I drive the used Honda, what is the prize at the end?
It's not a boat. It's not a mansion.
Yeah.
The prize is control.
Control over your time.
Yeah. The source cites research from a psychologist named Angus Campbell. He studied happiness, and he found that the strongest predictor of happiness wasn't income or education. It was the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today.
Autonomy.
Autonomy. Money's greatest intrinsic value isn't its ability to buy stuff. It's its ability to buy you out of things you hate. It buys you the ability to take a sick day, to leave a toxic boss, to retire when you're ready, not when you're forced to.
It's buying independence.
That is the ultimate dividend.
I want to leave our listeners with a challenge. It comes from a story about Sandy Gottsman, a billionaire investor.
Yes. When he interviews these young hotshots for his team, he doesn't ask for their best stock pick. He asks them, what do you own and why?
Not what do you recommend to clients, but what do you do with your own cash?
Because he knows there's a gap between what's rational on a spreadsheet and what actually lets you sleep at night. He wants to know the story you tell yourself.
So that's the question for you listening right now. Look at your own finances. Are you trying to act like a spreadsheet? Are you buying things to impress people who don't even care about you?
Yeah.
Or are you building a margin of safety that buys you freedom?
Are you just being smart, or are you being reasonable?
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
See you next time.